Hey friends, hope you're all doing well. We're doing okay too, just really tired since we've been working non-stop. We wanted to answer a question many of you ask: how does our publishing process work? Most of our audiobooks are first posted on Patreon as paid content. They stay behind a paywall for a few months. After that, they become free to access on Patreon forever. Then, a few weeks later, we upload them to other platforms like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, X. Lately, our community hasn't been growing much, and we could really use your help. Please share our site in your Facebook groups, Discord servers, Reddit threads, Twitter, X, or with any friends who might be interested. Every little bit helps and we really appreciate it. Thanks a lot for being with us and supporting what we do. Mind signing this first? Utaha glanced at the paper, then smirked. Spiritual Exorcism Club, huh? She took the form from him, tapping a finger against her chin in thought. Well, she mused, as long as I don't have to do anything troublesome, I suppose I can be convinced. Reed chuckled. Don't worry, I'll make it worth your while. She raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Oh? Now that sounds interesting. As Utaha signed the form, Riz smirked to himself. That makes 2 members. 1 more to go. Chapter 33, He's Not a Bad Person Either. Hello, Kasumijoka-senpai, I'm Yotsuya Maiko. You're surprisingly polite. After school, Kasumijoka Utaha arrived at the newly established Spiritual Exorcism Club that Ri had mentioned. The moment she stepped inside and saw the lineup of girls, her crimson eyes slightly widened before narrowing in quiet realization. With a small sigh, she shut the door behind her and took a seat. Aside from greeting Yotsuya Maiko, she outright ignored Miro Yumiko sitting across the room. Placing her school bag on the desk, she turned her gaze to Ru and spoke in a relaxed yet sharp tone. So, you're telling me this club was officially registered under the Spiritual Exorcism Club, but in reality, it's just a campus harem? Is that why you invited me? Miro Yumiko crossed her legs, placing her phone down with an amused smirk. If you don't like it, feel free to leave. Utaha chuckled and shot her a sidelong glance. Who said I disliked it? I signed up, didn't I? She then turned back to Ro. But I'm guessing this little confrontation was something Yumiko wanted to say but was too embarrassed to admit herself? When did I ever say that? Yumiko snapped back, then realized something. And don't call me so casually. Why not? Aren't we family now? Utaha's smile deepened. Shouldn't family members be close? Watching the scene unfold, Yotsuya Maiko internally sighed. I really shouldn't have gotten involved in this. This is our first official club gathering, so let's keep things calm. Ri clapped his hands, redirecting the tension. Both girls huffed and turned their heads away, still refusing to acknowledge each other. Ri didn't find this surprising in the slightest. With 2 proud, sharp-tongued women, conflict was bound to happen. If they suddenly became best friends overnight, that would have been the real cause for concern. Still, for their first proper meeting, a little less hostility would have been preferable. So, he decided to shift the attention elsewhere towards Yotsuya Maiko. As expected, Maiko is the most well-behaved here. Immediately, Yumiko and Utaha turned their scrutinizing gazes toward her. Even with her steel-like mental fortitude, Maiko felt an invisible pressure settle on her shoulders. And no, that's not true. She waved her hands frantically. I think Senpai and Yumiko-san are both amazing, and you're both very beautiful. Ru, you traitor. Maiko cried internally. At a time like this, shouldn't he be the one diffusing the situation? Instead, he just pushed her into the spotlight. How was she, a simple girl, supposed to handle being judged by 2 of the most admired girls in school? However, Yumiko and Utaha seemed to catch on to something from Maiko's words. Not only did she possess unique abilities, but she was also meek, kind, and unassuming. This made her unexpectedly dangerous. With the 2 of them bickering, Maiko could easily gain favor with Ri by simply not being a hassle. That realization made both girls immediately cool down. Seeing this, Utaha coughed lightly, as if moving on from the prior argument, and elegantly asked, So, is this club just for your personal amusement, or does it serve a real purpose? Half and half. Ri replied without hesitation. He leaned back against the desk and continued, This club will serve as our base of operations in school. I'll make sure it's a comfortable environment for all of us. Then, he turned to Maiko. And this school has a high concentration of cursed spirits. It's the perfect place for you to start training. Huh? Maiko yelped, eyes wide. So soon? I'm not ready. Relax. Riz smirked. I'll have Okotoko train you first. We'll start with minor cursed spirits. Meanwhile, Akitomoya staggered home, clutching his stomach. The school nurse had told him there were no serious injuries, he just needed rest. But the lingering pain told him otherwise. That one punch. It wasn't normal. It wasn't just a difference in height or build. The sheer force behind that hit, he'd never felt anything like it. The impact had sent him flying. His ribs still ached with every breath. On one hand, he was terrified Ryu would attack him again. On the other, he hated that Kasumijoka Utaha had humiliated him so thoroughly. He clenched his fists. If I can't retaliate in real life, then I'll do it online. He had spent years curating his blog, gathering like-minded people. He would use that influence to ruin Utaha's reputation. She would regret looking down on him. With this in mind, Tomoya quickened his pace. Yet, unbeknownst to him, an invisible force had already been set in motion. Due to Ryu's control over magic, he had left two types of lingering effects on Tomoya. One was a protective charm, like the one he had placed on Utaha. The other was a curse. Unlike ordinary people, who were generally ignored by weak cursed spirits, Tomoya had been unknowingly marked as a beacon for them. Cursed spirits were now drawn to him. As he walked, unseen creatures crept closer. At first, they only lurked nearby, observing. But as their numbers grew, they began to fight amongst themselves, their malevolent energy growing stronger. Then, just as Tomoya stepped onto a crosswalk, he suddenly felt a shove from behind. His body lurched forward. He whipped around, expecting to see the culprit, but there was no one there. Panic flooded his senses. Then, the blaring horn of an approaching truck filled his ears. A few days later, Ryu heard about Tomoya's fate. He had been involved in a traffic accident. Hit by a speeding car, he had miraculously survived, if one could call being in a coma surviving. His condition? Vegetative state. Ryu wasn't surprised. When a person was exposed to negative energy for too long, their life force was gradually drained. From a medical standpoint, there would be no clear explanation, just a body slowly failing, as if afflicted by an unseen illness. And in Tomoya's case, that effect had been amplified by the curse Ryu had placed on him. Of course, he hadn't intended for things to escalate this quickly. But the result was still convenient. However, hospitals were breeding grounds for cursed spirits. And since Tomoya's soul hadn't fully left his body yet, there was a chance something else might decide to take residence inside him. I'm not a bad person, Ryu mused to himself. So, after school, he decided he'd visit Tomoya in the hospital. To check in on him. And, of course, to reapply the curse. Chapter 34, The Mysterious Masakurajima. A few days later. Besides some ongoing rumors, school life remained relatively normal. With Ryu's spells reinforcing the Spiritual Exorcism Club's room, it had essentially become his personal domain. A private space, secured and exclusive. Because of that, Kasumijoka Utaha would often drop by even during lunch breaks to rest. Or, more accurately, to use it as her secondary writing den. Of course, it would have been a far better environment if the annoying golden retriever wasn't sitting right in front of her. Sensing Utaha's gaze, Miro Yumiko immediately looked up, wary. What? She asked flatly. Nothing. Utaha replied smoothly. But even as she returned to typing on her laptop, her eyes flickered back toward Yumiko from time to time. At first, Yumiko ignored it, but after a while, her patience wore thin. She put down her phone, clearly irritated. Why do you keep looking at me? You're not planning to write me into one of your novels, are you? After spending time together, Yumiko had learned a lot about Utaha beyond her reputation as the unattainable Ice Queen. She also knew that Utaha was a published author. Out of curiosity, Yumiko had even bought one of her books. She could admit begrudgingly that it was a good read. But right now, she was more concerned that Utaha might be using her as inspiration. Utaha remained quiet. Yumiko immediately slammed her hands onto the table, standing up in protest. Don't write me in it. Utaha calmly kept typing. Relax. She said, completely unbothered. I don't have any evil intentions. Yet. Yet? It's just market research. Readers seem to like blonde characters. I figured I'd use you as a reference. Yumiko crossed her arms. It better just be a reference. Seeing how easily she let it go, Utaha smirked and mentally noted down the name Miko for her next light novel supporting heroine. Satisfied, she closed her laptop. With the Spiritual Exorcism Club now officially established, Utaha didn't particularly care about its true purpose. To her, this place was just another quiet sanctuary. More importantly, while writing the next volume of Love Metronome, she realized that his situation perfectly mirrored the dynamics she wanted for her next plotline. It was just too good not to use. Which was precisely why she had been spending more time in the clubroom. She was in the middle of imagining a new scene when Yumiko spoke up. Where's Ryu, anyway? He left right after class. Something about the latest campus rumor. Yumiko replied. Utaha raised an eyebrow. You mean Masakurajima? Yumiko nodded. Like most urban legends, This one had started with a few vague claims but had quickly escalated into a full-blown school mystery. Apparently, multiple students had seen a girl walking around campus, holding a sign that read, "I am Mai Sakurajima. Can you see me?" And yet, when asked, none of the witnesses could recall what the girl actually looked like. Even stranger, there were no official student records of anyone named Mai Sakurajima at Sobya High. Though it could have easily been a prank, rumors had a way of spiraling out of control. The entire thing had turned into an unsolved ghost story. Of course, in Utaha's mind, ghosts were just another term for cursed spirits. The real curiosity, however, was Ri's reaction. The moment he heard the name Sakurajima Mai, his interest had been immediate. Utaha sighed. Honestly, he just loves getting involved in things like this. Yumiko gave a dry laugh. If the rumor turns out to be true, he might bring home another one. That was the real problem. If Sakurajima Mai wasn't a normal person, there was a chance she might be like Yotsuya Maiko. Which meant Ri might add yet another girl to the group. Utaha leaned back in her chair, shutting her eyes. Ever since Ri abandoned his more passive approach, he had been steadily taking control. What was once her upper hand in the relationship had subtly shifted. And the worst part? Every time she got frustrated about it, Ri would effortlessly diffuse the situation. She sighed again. Damn it. How did he flip the script on me so quickly? Her thoughts were interrupted by Yumiko's voice. Hey, Utaha. Utaha didn't even open her eyes. What? I need to ask you something. Hearing Yumiko hesitate was rare. Curious, Utaha cracked open one eye. Go ahead. Yumiko hesitated for another moment before lowering her voice. How do you prepare for that? Utaha tilted her head. For what? Yumiko exhaled sharply, as if trying to work up her courage. You know that. The thing between men and women. For a brief moment, the clubroom fell silent. Then Utaha smirked. My. She teased. So bold to bring this up at school, Yumiko. You. Yumiko's face turned red, and she nearly threw her phone at Utaha. Utaha chuckled and waved her off. Alright. I'll stop teasing. What exactly do you need help with? Yumiko took another deep breath. I've held off for long enough. I think it's time I take the next step with Ro. Her birthday was coming up. And she had already decided. But the problem was she had no idea how to go about it. It wasn't something she could just Google. And there was no way she was asking her usual group of friends. Which left one person, Utaha. The only girl in their circle who had already done it. Utaha stared at her for a moment before smirking again. Oh? She said, amused. And here I thought you were the cool type. Shut up. Utaha crossed her legs, resting her chin on her hand. I mean, it's the same as any other couple, isn't it? Magician or not, Ri's still human. Then, she paused. Actually, no. Ri wasn't like other guys. She had experienced that firsthand. And Yumiko was going to learn that very soon. Utaha debated whether to warn her. Then changed her mind. She grinned. Alright, then. Sit down. Yumiko blinked. Huh? You want advice, don't you? Utaha gestured for her to sit. I'll teach you. Yumiko hesitated before finally taking a seat. Good. Utaha said, pleased. I even have a few ideas that might help. And so using her experience as an advantage, Utaha began tutoring Yumiko in practical knowledge. Meanwhile, Ri walked through the halls, hands in his pockets, following the trail of lingering magic. His purpose? To meet with Mai Sakurajima. Chapter 35, a healer in every sense of the word. After their discussion, it wasn't long before Ri pushed open the clubroom door, Yotsuya Maiko following closely behind. The moment he stepped in, he was met with an unusual sight: Kasumijoka Utaha and Miro Yumiko sitting on opposite sides of the room. He raised an eyebrow. Huh? You two hanging out together? That's rare. Normally, if he wasn't around, Utaha would quietly focus on her writing, while Yumiko would be off maintaining her social life. It wasn't often that they were alone in the same space. Utaha didn't immediately answer. Instead, her gaze shifted behind Ro, scanning the doorway. Seeing that no one else had followed him in, she smirked. So, Ri-kun, she said, voice laced with amusement, did you find Sakurajima Mai? Ri sighed. Nope. No luck. Utaha's eyes glinted. So you already know whether the rumors are real or not? I have an advantage over normal people. Ri said casually, shrugging. Mai Sakurajima is real. But based on what I found, she might be dealing with the same kind of problem as Maiko. Utaha clicked her tongue. That wasn't the answer she wanted to hear. Let me guess. She said dryly, you're planning to help her? Of course. Ri said, completely straight-faced. We go to the same school, so if she's in trouble, I'll lend a hand. Utaha narrowed her eyes. You just finished expanding your little harem. You're already thinking of recruiting a new member? Ri laughed. That's not what this is about. But before he could continue, he caught a strange reaction from Yumiko. For some reason, she looked nervous. Weird. It almost seemed like she and Utaha were hiding something from him. But after a moment of thought, Ri decided not to push it. Anyway, he continued, I didn't run into Mai at all. Just a bunch of cursed spirits. Hearing that, Maiko immediately shrank into her seat. Even now, her body trembled slightly at the memory. Since she and Ri had split up, she had encountered quite a few cursed spirits on her own. Though she had begun training under Roketuko, she had only tested her abilities on small cursed spirits. Anything bigger, she still pretended not to see. She pouted. Ru, you're so mean. You should have given me a protection charm. Kasumidoka Utaha and Mira Yumiko both had protective charms from Ru. She had seen how effective they were. Yet he hadn't given her one. Ri sighed. It's not that I don't want to. He paused, then explained. This is Tuko's request. Since you'll eventually be able to exorcise spirits yourself, she doesn't want you relying on external protection too much before you grow stronger. Hearing that, Maiko slumped forward onto the table. Ugh. She groaned. I don't want to exorcise spirits. I just want to stop seeing them. Utaha and Yumiko exchanged glances but remained silent. Both of them had mixed feelings about the supernatural world. On one hand, it was fascinating. On the other, it was utterly terrifying. Though Maiko had the softest personality of the three, Utaha and Yumiko genuinely respected her. Compared to them, she was dealing with way more than she should have been. Guess that's fate. Riz said, patting Maiko's head. Truthfully, he didn't need Maiko to get stronger. He was already powerful enough. But Oketuko saw potential in Maiko and had taken it upon herself to train her. Ri didn't interfere. If Maiko could gain some level of power, it would at least make her safe. After a moment of thought, Ri sighed, disappointed. He had really wanted to meet Sakurajima Mai. The moment he heard the rumors, he had known it was her. Since Subuhai was a merged school, he hadn't immediately thought of her presence. But once he overheard Hayama discussing the rumor, realization had hit him like a truck. He had searched most of the school but hadn't found her. Still, if Mai was being affected by some supernatural phenomenon, she would definitely appear again. For now, he put the thought aside and turned to Maiko. Maiko. He said, that girl who visited the clubroom last time, she's your friend, right? Maiko blinked. You mean Hana? Hana Yurikawa. Yumiko chimed in. Utaha, too, seemed to recognize the name. A few days ago, Maiko's best friend had visited the club and chatted with everyone. Though, if they were being honest, she had left a lasting impression. Not because of her personality, but because of her size. At first glance, both Utaha and Yumiko, who had been confident in their own figures, felt what could only be described as defeat. They had never felt that before. Yeah, her. Ri confirmed. She's interesting. The moment he said that, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The girls all looked at each other. Utaha raised an eyebrow. Ri-kun, are you seriously interested in another girl already? Yumiko groaned. This is getting ridiculous. The two of them exchanged another knowing glance. Ri held up his hands. Relax. It's not what you're thinking. He sighed. You don't realize it, but Hana is special. Their expressions only grew more suspicious. Ri frowned. Was his reputation already that bad? Ahem. He cleared his throat. I mean special in a supernatural sense. Maiko perked up. You mean her energy? Ri nodded. Hana has extremely strong life energy. He explained. She can't see cursed spirits, and nothing seems unusual about her. But that's only because she's never learned how to use her talent. The girls still looked doubtful. Ri continued. The world runs on balance, yin and yang, positive and negative energy. Cursed spirits are negative energy. To exorcise them, sorcerers use negative energy. That's why sorcerers are mostly filled with negative power. But, he added, at a higher level, there's something called reverse curse technique. It takes negative energy and flips it into positive energy. He smirked. And with enough positive energy, you can turn destruction into healing. Maiko's eyes widened. You mean like regenerating limbs? Ri nodded. Exactly. A sorcerer's normal healing rate was slow. But with reverse curse technique, injuries could be healed instantly. Hana's body already contained massive amounts of natural life energy. If she learned how to control it, she could be a powerful healer. Ri concluded. A walking fountain of vitality. He glanced at Maiko. I want you to invite her to the club. I need to observe her closely. The room fell silent. They hadn't expected Ri to be this interested in Hana's potential. After a moment, Maiko nodded. "I'll try," she said. She rarely refused Ri's requests. But as the conversation ended, she suddenly felt conflicted. "Still," she muttered under her breath. Hearing the word nurse reminded her of something else. And for some reason she felt a little self-conscious about it. Chapter 36, I want to join the Exorcist Club. Yotsuya Maiko was nothing if not efficient. Right after school, she led Hana Yurikawa straight into the Exorcist Club. "Kasamijoka-senpai, Yumiko-san, Ri-san, good afternoon." Despite only having met them once before, Hana was just as cheerful and carefree as ever. She raised a hand in greeting, flashing them a bright smile. "Huh? This place looks way different now." The moment she stepped inside, Hana immediately noticed the drastic change in the clubroom's layout. The last time she had visited, it had been filled with standard school desks and chairs. Now, a cozy sofa, a large TV, even a fully equipped gaming console, all things that absolutely should not exist in a school clubroom. Maiko gave an awkward chuckle. Well, there's a reason for that. She wasn't about to explain that Ri had somehow persuaded the school to turn this place into a luxury lounge through sheer force of personality. Even though it was probably breaking multiple school regulations, Maiko wasn't about to complain. As Hana made her way toward the sofa, she suddenly noticed another figure standing near the window. A woman clearly older than them, dressed in a veil, giving off a strangely mysterious aura. "Huh? Who's this?" Maiko followed her gaze and introduced her calmly. "That's Okitoko. She's my master." Hana blinked. "Wait. You're what?" Maiko sighed. "Yeah. I have a master now." Hana stared at her, completely bewildered. When the hell had her best friend suddenly become someone's disciple? Despite her confusion, Hana instinctively straightened up and greeted Okitoko politely. Toko gave a small nod in return but kept her gaze fixed firmly on Hana. Just as Risama said, "Your energy is extraordinary." Hearing that, Hana tensed up. She leaned toward Maiko, whispering, "Maiko. Why does she sound like she's studying me?" Maiko hesitated for a moment before answering. "Where? Learning how to exorcise spirits." Hana tilted her head. "Oh, so this is all about ghosts and stuff? That makes sense. You do love haunted houses." Given how Maiko had always been into horror attractions, Hana figured her sudden interest in exorcism wasn't too surprising. She had been a little confused when Maiko randomly decided to join the Exorcist Club, but now that she thought about it, it fit her pretty well. However, a master? Really? Isn't that a bit much? Tuko, who had been silently observing their conversation, finally spoke. "You misunderstand, child," she said calmly. "What Maiko speaks of is not fantasy. It is reality." And then with a flick of her wrist, Tuko pulled out an empty plastic bottle from seemingly nowhere and tossed it into the air. She clenched her right fist, her entire arm brimming with cursed energy, and punched. Boom. The force of her attack shattered the bottle instantly, sending a shockwave rippling through the air. Everyone in the room turned to stare. Even Kasamijoka Utaha and Mira Yumiko, who had been casually chatting, put their conversations on hold. It was one thing to hear about sorcery, but witnessing it firsthand, that was an entirely different experience. Hana, on the other hand, jumped backward, startled. Clutching onto Maiko's sleeve, she stammered, Was that magic?" Maiko hesitated, then nodded. Yeah. It was real. But instead of believing her, Hana just furrowed her brows. "Is this some kind of magic trick?" Maiko groaned. She knew Hana wasn't going to believe it that easily. And sure enough, Hana reached out and placed her forehead against Maiko's. "No fever." Maiko let out a long sigh and gently pushed her away. "Hana. This is real. I swear." But Hana still didn't look convinced. Seeing this, Ri finally stepped forward. "All right," he said. "Then how about we show you the world through Maiko's eyes?" Hana turned to face him. Her cheeks flushed slightly. For a brief moment, she was caught off guard not by his words, but by how unfairly good-looking he was. But before she could get distracted, she processed what he had just said. "Through Maiko's eyes?" Ri nodded. The pattern of his Mangekyo Sharingan spun into existence. And in the next second everything went dark. Both Maiko and Hana's bodies slumped unconscious onto the sofa. Seeing this, Yumiko's expression twisted in mild concern. "So, you just put them into a genjutsu?" Ri smirked. "A very advanced one. I merged their consciousness so Hana can experience Maiko's memories firsthand." Miro Yumiko frowned. "So, you can see other people's memories just like that?" "Technically, yeah," Ri admitted. "Then you better not go poking into mine." Ri let out a laugh and casually knocked her on the head. "Relax. I wouldn't waste my time on that." Yumiko pouted. "Hey. What's that supposed to mean? Kasumajoka Utaha, who had been watching silently, finally spoke. Is this really necessary? She asked. Recrossed his arms. Yes. Because sooner or later, Hana's going to have to face the truth. He glanced toward the unconscious girl. Her energy is different from normal people's. That means cursed spirits will be drawn to her. If she doesn't awaken to her abilities soon, it'll only be a matter of time before something bad happens. Utaha pursed her lips, considering his words. Riz smirked. Besides, he added, if you two are so curious, I can let you experience it too. The two girls immediately shook their heads. Yeah, no thanks. Yumeko muttered. Pass. Utaha agreed. Luckily for them, the genjutsu didn't last long. Soon enough, both Maiko and Hana snapped back to reality. Hana's reaction was immediate. She latched onto Maiko, her entire body trembling. It's so scary. She sobbed. Maiko sighed and patted her back. I know. She said soothingly. Through her own memories, Hana had just witnessed the horrifying world Maiko lived in. She had seen the cursed spirits. Felt the overwhelming dread. And perhaps most importantly, she had seen Riz single-handedly annihilate them all. Still clutching onto Maiko's uniform, Hana sniffled. Maiko's been going through all this alone. And I couldn't help her at all. Maiko frowned. It's fine. You don't have to worry about it. But Hana shook her head. No. She turned to Ro. Her face was still tear-streaked. But her expression was filled with determination. I want to join the Exorcist Club. Chapter 37, December is a special month. Ro didn't refuse. It was only natural that Hana Yurikawa would join the Exorcist Club, and like Maiko, she received a protective talisman from him. After that, under Okatuko's guidance, both Hana and Maiko began their respective training. While Tuko wasn't the strongest sorcerer, she was still a competent teacher, having once trained another disciple in the past. However, since Hana lacked any ability to sense cursed energy, her training focused purely on harnessing the immense positive energy within her body rather than using sorcery. Thus, the club's daily routine split into two very different regimens. One girl practiced exorcising spirits with curses, while the other simply meditated and ate snacks until she could sense her life energy properly. At first, Maiko felt guilty for dragging Hana into the supernatural world. But after a few weeks, she could feel nothing but jealousy. Unlike her, Hana never had to deal with cursed spirits directly. She didn't have to confront those terrifying beings, nor endure the oppressive negativity of Tuko's lessons. Instead, her training consisted of lounging around in the safest part of the school, relaxing, and eating to her heart's content. Compared to Maiko's daily suffering, it was like heaven and earth. And to make matters worse, no matter how much Hana ate, she never gained weight. All of it just went to her chest. Maiko gritted her teeth, sighing deeply. It's so unfair, Hana. Hana, oblivious as ever, only laughed. Time passed quickly, and before they knew it, December had arrived. Both Maiko and Hana had made significant progress in their training. Maiko had reached the point where she could channel cursed energy into her attacks, allowing her to exorcise small, weak spirits. However, her lack of physical combat skills and inability to release her energy at range still made it difficult for her to handle larger curses. That said, she was thrilled by one major improvement: she could now control her vision, filtering out weaker cursed spirits at will. As for Hana, she had successfully learned how to draw out her own life energy. Now, whenever she got a small cut or scratch, she could heal instantly as long as she had enough food in her stomach. It was the first step toward becoming an invaluable healer. It was a Saturday, and Ri had slept in later than usual. When he finally woke up, he noticed something strange. Utaha was still in bed. It's already 10 o'clock, Utaha. She cracked one eye open at his voice only to immediately shut it again, rolling over. Seeing this, Ri shrugged and pulled out his phone, scrolling through messages as he waited. Another half hour passed before he heard the rustling of fabric beside him. Utaha was finally getting up. You're really taking your time today. Ri teased. She stretched lazily, fixing her stockings. I have an afternoon meeting. She replied casually. With your editor? Utaha nodded. Yeah, at Kitakawa's office. Ri raised an eyebrow. Another contract negotiation? It's about my second volume hitting physical release, she said, sounding pleased with herself. Ri smirked. Right. Because your book has been trending again lately. He already knew the real reason behind that. It was because of him. Though he didn't say it out loud, he had made sure that Utaha's work got more exposure than usual. And, as expected, the editors had immediately taken notice of her rising popularity. A new contract and a bestseller on the way. Looks like you're gonna be filthy rich, huh? Utaha smirked proudly. Naturally. As she finished getting dressed, she glanced back at him. Oh, by the way, I won't be coming over tonight. Not tonight either? Ri frowned slightly. Despite Hana officially joining the club, the family group chat still only consisted of Utaha, Yumiko, and Maiko. Normally, weekend nights were his time with Utaha. But for some reason, she had been acting mysterious about her plans. Utaha smiled mischievously. Don't worry, you'll find out soon enough. And with that, she climbed back onto the bed, leaning in close. Then she bit his neck. Ri felt a sharp sting as her teeth left behind an unmistakable mark. Only when she was satisfied with the result did she finally pull away. That's my compensation for tonight, she said with a smirk. Ri stared at her, unimpressed. You're really annoying when you act like the Riddler. Utaha chuckled. This isn't a riddle, Ri. It's called mystique, an essential trait between lovers. She then turned toward her bag, pulling out a camera. But before I go, I need you to take a photo of me. For what? Ri asked suspiciously. Utaha's golden eyes sparkled with mischief. Just take the picture, she said. If you do, I'll give you a reward just like last night. Ri smirked. Fine. As she left the room, his gaze landed on a pile of slightly torn clothing nearby. The same outfit she had brought last night. Right. Last night, when Utaha had asked him what kind of reward he wanted, he had half-jokingly said, wear a bunny girl outfit. And, of course, she actually did it. Ri chuckled to himself. He had to admit he enjoyed that a lot more than he expected. After cleaning up the mess, he pulled out his phone, checking his schedule for the day. Maiko and Hana were off training with Okatoko, so they were covered. That left two options. 1. Visit Yumiko. 2. Investigate the latest urban legend rumors. But before he could decide, his phone rang. Looking at the screen, he raised an eyebrow. The caller ID read, Star Religious Group. Ri immediately narrowed his eyes. It had been a long time since he last heard from Gito Suguru's faction. Ever since he received his Mangekyo Sharingan from Gito, he had avoided getting too involved with them. But now, they were suddenly calling him, and that wasn't the only thing on his mind. December was a dangerous month. There were 2 key events coming up. 1. Yumiko's birthday on December 12th. 2. The Night Parade of 100 Demons December 24th. Ri's gaze darkened. That second event wasn't just a rumor. It was a major incident. On Christmas Eve, Gito Suguru would unleash a massive attack on Tokyo, all in an attempt to capture Yuta Okatsu. TCH. Ri put his phone down, thinking carefully. December was shaping up to be very eventful. Chapter 38, The Shinami Azabatsu. It was clear now Gito Suguru had set his sights on Yuta Okatsu. Which meant that war with Jujutsu was imminent. Troublesome. Yet, despite everything, Ri couldn't deny one thing: Gito had helped him. Regardless of who Suguru Gito was, Ri wasn't the type to be an ungrateful bastard. Especially since the Mangekyo Sharingan in his eyes was something Gito had indirectly gifted him. It was a debt Ri couldn't ignore. With that thought, he picked up the phone. Hey, is this not Tsukawa-kun? Gito's familiar, calm voice came through the receiver. Ri replied without hesitation. It's me. What's up? A small chuckle followed. Still as direct as ever. Well, it's been a while since I last visited the Star Religious Group, but if you're calling me now, it's obviously about that. There was a brief silence on the other end. Then, Gito spoke again, his voice amused. Natsukawa-kun really doesn't act like a high school student. Flattery won't get you anywhere. Ri sighed. So? You need me to come over? If possible, yes. There are a few things we should discuss in person. Ri glanced at the time. Since Utaha was playing mysterious today, and Maiko was busy training with Toko, he didn't really have any plans. Alright. I'll head over now. Great. Gito replied, his tone warm. I'll be waiting. Ri ended the call, then casually sent a message in the family group chat. Ru, got something to handle. Be back in the evening. Then, without wasting time, he made his way toward the Star Religious Group's headquarters. Leaving the city, Ri's car eventually climbed the winding mountain roads that led to the group's hidden base. Before he could even step out, he spotted Gito Suguru waiting for him. Yo, Natsukawa-kun. Gito greeted him with a relaxed wave. Ri raised an eyebrow as he stepped out of the car. I figured you'd be waiting inside. Gito chuckled. I would have if I wasn't worried about you getting lost again. Ri scowled. TCH. That was one time. With an amused expression, Gito gestured for him to follow. Our organization isn't some old-fashioned cult, you know. We're quite modern. Ri glanced around as they walked, his eyes narrowing slightly. This place was different from last time. Instead of taking the long flight of ancient stone steps, Gito led him toward a hidden facility tucked behind the mountainside. Ri's eyes flickered to a metallic entrance, complete with a security card scanner. A far cry from the traditional temple aesthetic most outsiders associated with the Star religious group. With a swipe of his card, Gito unlocked the doors revealing an underground parking complex filled with luxury cars. Ri gave him a flat look. Are you seriously telling me I climbed those stairs for nothing last time? Gito gave an unapologetic smile. Ah, I forgot to mention this passage is only for VIPs. Ri's eyebrow twitched. You should have told me this before. Oops. My bad. Gito's tone was anything but apologetic. As they rode the cable car up to the temple, Ri noticed something unusual. A group of men in suits stood near the entrance, clearly security personnel. And in the center of them stood an elderly man with silver hair, exuding an undeniable aura of authority. Even without knowing his name, Ri could tell this man was a heavyweight. The kind of person who controlled entire industries with a single decision. As they stepped off, the old man turned, his sharp gaze landing on them. Gito smiled and greeted him. Ah, Master Shinomiya. Leaving already? Ri's eyes narrowed slightly. Shinomiya? The Shinomiya Zaibatsu. That name wasn't just famous, it was legendary. The Shinomiya family wasn't just rich, they had enough wealth and political influence to sway entire nations. And more importantly, if this was the head of the family, that meant this was Shinomiya Kaguya's grandfather. Ri remained silent, choosing to observe instead. The old man gave Gito a small nod. I was merely here to pay our dues for the second half of the year. After speaking, his gaze turned toward Ro. And who is this? His tone was neutral, but his interest was evident. Gito, ever the smooth talker, gestured toward Ro. This is not Tsukawa, a very special guest of our organization. Special, you say? The old man's gaze sharpened. Indeed. Gito's smile didn't falter. Though he's still in high school, he's an extremely powerful exorcist, one who can match me. At those words, Master Shinomiya's expression changed slightly. For someone of his status, Gito's power wasn't a mystery. The fact that Gito himself was calling this high schooler his equal was concerning. Ri felt the weight of the old man's gaze as he sized him up. A subtle, calculating look. Like a businessman evaluating a potential investment. Ri remained calm, offering a slight nod but said nothing. Gito didn't say anything more either, letting the tension settle for a moment. Then, after a brief silence, the old man finally looked away. I see. Without another word, he turned, signaling his guards to follow. As he boarded the cable car down the mountain, he gave his men a final order, look into him. And just like that he was gone. As soon as they were alone again, Ri sighed. Great. Now I have a billionaire mogul looking into me. Gito chuckled. Worried? Not really. Ri muttered. Just annoyed. Don't be. Gito smiled. It's just how the elite operate. People like him, they don't ignore potential threats or assets. Asset, huh? Ri clicked his tongue. What a pain. Still, this encounter had given him something to think about. Why was the Shinomiya Zaibatsu paying the Star religious group? Was it really just exorcism fees? Or was there something bigger going on? One thing was for sure, December was about to get a lot more complicated. Chapter 39, The Shinomiya Zaibatsu. As they walked through the courtyard, Gito Suguru suddenly asked, Does not Tsukawa-kun know about the Shinomiya Zaibatsu? Ri glanced at him. I know a little. They're one of the top conglomerates, right? Gito chuckled. That's an understatement. As far as I know, each child in that family has assets worth at least 100 trillion yen. Ri let that number settle in his mind. 100 trillion. An amount so absurd it might as well be fantasy. But Gito spoke about it as if it were just another minor detail. Noticing Ri's complete lack of reaction, Gito raised an eyebrow. You don't seem surprised? Ri shrugged. To be honest, that amount is so far beyond normal human comprehension that I can't even react to it properly. Ha ha ha. Gito laughed loudly. That actually makes a lot of sense. I remember you said you were interested in money, not Tsukawa-kun. Ri nodded without denying it. Well. Gito continued with a knowing smile, that's why I specifically told Shinomiya-sama about you. Ri's eyes narrowed slightly. You did what? Relax. Gito said, waving a hand. All I did was mention your name. That alone should have caught his attention. If things go well, you might soon find yourself connected to the Shinomiya family. Huh. That's actually useful. After a brief pause, Ri spoke again. But there's something I still don't get. Gito turned his head slightly, signaling for him to continue. The Shinomiya Zaibatsu, a family with unimaginable power and influence, chose to align itself with the Star religious group. Why? Hearing this, Gito's smirk deepened. Oh? So not Tsukawa-kun noticed already? Ri kept his expression neutral. It's not hard to see. He said casually. Sorcerer in this world hold far more power than most people realize. And your star religious group doesn't exactly operate like a normal organization. That's a rather bold statement. Gito said, his smile never fading. But he didn't deny it either. Let's just say, he continued smoothly, that because the star religious group is not bound by the laws of Jujutsu High, we have certain freedoms that allow us to operate in ways others cannot. In other words, Ryu concluded, the Shinomiya family uses you to handle problems they can't deal with publicly. More or less. Gito admitted. By now, they had reached a quiet, empty courtyard. Gito took a seat on a nearby chair and suddenly asked, tell me, Natsukawa-kun, do you know that humanity is divided into two kinds of people? Ryu gave him a blank look. Men and women? Gito chuckled. That's not what I meant. His playful demeanor vanished, replaced by a cold, almost calculating expression. I'm talking about sorcerers and non-sorcerers. Ryu remained silent, waiting for him to continue. Sorcerers, Gito said slowly, are blessed with immense power. We can do things that ordinary humans could never even dream of. But despite this, he continued, we are expected to protect and serve the weak, those who contribute nothing to the world of Jujutsu. At that moment, Gito's expression darkened. The law of nature is survival of the fittest, yet we are forced to cater to the weak. The strong must obey the weak. Doesn't that sound absurd? Ryu met Gito's gaze. Let me guess, you hate non-sorcerers? A twisted grin spread across Gito's face. Hate? He repeated. Of course I hate them. The cursed spirits that plague this world. Gito's voice was cold. They exist because of the negative emotions of weak humans. And yet, he spat, it's us, the sorcerers, who must clean up their mess, losing our lives for their sake. They are the true cause of all this suffering. He growled. And that's why, he said, eyes burning with conviction, I will create a perfect world. A world without non-sorcerers. A world without cursed spirits. A world where only Jujutsu sorcerers exist. With that radical declaration, Gito fell silent, waiting for Ryu's answer. Hearing his words, Ryu couldn't help but think this guy sounds exactly like Hakaya Bito. For a long moment, he remained deep in thought. Then, finally, he spoke. I don't deny the concept of the strong ruling over the weak. Even the idea of the strong being dominant makes sense to me. Gito's eyes gleamed with interest. But, Ryu continued, I don't give a damn about rigid ideologies like yours. If I want to dominate, I will. If I want to help someone, I will. Everything I do is based on my own desires, not some bullshit philosophy. The way I see it. Ryu smirked, if you truly believe in the survival of the fittest, then that means the strong should have the power to do whatever they want. Gito's eyes widened slightly, as if caught off guard. Of all the possible responses, he hadn't expected this one. Ryu leaned forward. So if you want to exterminate humanity and create your little sorcerer utopia, that's your choice. But personally, he grinned. I think your plan is stupid as hell. Gito blinked. Then, slowly, a deep laugh escaped his lips. Interesting. His laughter grew louder, before he finally sighed and shook his head. In the end, you still refuse to join me, huh? Ryu shrugged. Did you really think I'd become a raving lunatic like you just because of a little gratitude? Gito exhaled deeply. I suppose not. But, Natsukawa-kun, he said, standing up, since we're on opposing paths, I'd like to ask for one last favor. Ryu tilted his head. Which is? Gito's eyes gleamed. Just as you suspected earlier, there are other forces in the Jujutsu world besides Jujutsu High and the Star Religious Group. Ryu's expression hardened slightly. And? I need your help in dealing with one of them. Ryu smirked. Alright. He said. Let's hear it. Chapter 40, the next evolution of Mangekyo Sharingan. Of course, Ryu already knew. With his innate memory, he wasn't omniscient about the world of Jujutsu, but his knowledge far surpassed that of most sorcerers. Naturally, Gito Suguru wasn't aware of what made Ryu so unique, so he continued explaining the Jujutsu world in more detail. In truth, sorcerers, like any other species, tend to gather in groups. You have organizations like my Star Religious Group, as well as Jujutsu clans and independent Jujutsu experts. But putting those clans aside for now, the core of modern Jujutsu society is the Tokyo and Kyoto Jujutsu High schools. Eventually, I plan to declare war on Jujutsu High. The ones fighting by my side will be my family and the cursed spirits I control. Hearing this, Ryu pointed out the most obvious flaw. And what about you? Gito smirked. There's something inside Jujutsu High that I want. For the sake of my cause, I must claim it myself. So your plan is basically a diversion? Gito nodded. Exactly. While I infiltrate Jujutsu High, I need you and my forces to hold back their sorcerers. Ryu sighed, scratching his head. What a hassle. Receiving a favor really does come with its price. Jujutsu High wasn't just some school, it was the backbone of the entire Jujutsu society. If he openly opposed them, he'd be considered a villain forced into hiding like Geto and his curse user followers. And that wasn't an option. This was still an anime world, and there were so many places he wanted to explore. Besides, he had Utaha, Yumiko, Maiko, and Hana in his life. He wasn't going to let himself become a wanted criminal. But at the same time, there was a simple solution to this dilemma: overwhelming strength. That was why he came to Star Religious Group in the first place. Maintaining a conflicted expression, Riz spoke. Jujutsu High is a legitimate institution with sorcerers of unmatched quality and quantity. Even with your cursed spirit army, you won't stand a chance. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to stall them, you'd just wipe them out. Geto chuckled. You're as sharp as ever, Rikun. Indeed, there's a particular white-haired guy at Jujutsu High who's currently the strongest sorcerer alive. Gojo Satoru. Ri muttered. That's right. Geto confirmed. But don't worry, he and I go way back. He might just go easy on you. Ri scoffed. Easy? The Six Eyes user? The man with infinite void? The walking cheat code of Jujutsu society? Yeah, right. Seems like I'm being forced into villainy. Ri muttered. And I'm only a first-year high school student. Geto smiled. I've thought about that too, Rikun. After I win, I'll ensure Jujutsu High never bothers you again. Ryu ignored him. Win? Geto's plan was doomed to fail. Jujutsu High had Gojo Satoru, and Yuta Okatsu, who had Rika the Queen of Curses. Even if Ri joined Geto's side, the outcome wouldn't change. I don't bet on low success rates. Ri finally said. From my perspective, this is a losing battle. So what kind of leverage would change your mind? Geto asked curiously. Then, as if realizing something, he smirked. Or do you just want to eat again? Ri grinned. You catch on fast. He said. Your cursed spirit army is just a distraction, right? Then instead of letting them die for nothing, why not feed them to me? I'll use them to evolve my eyes. Geto's eyes widened. Your eyes can evolve further? Ri nodded. He raised his hand, activating his Mangekyo Sharingan. So? He smirked. Rather than letting those cursed spirits go to waste, wouldn't you rather have them serve a greater purpose? Geto remained silent, studying him carefully. This was a gamble. Those cursed spirits weren't disposable. They were crucial to Geto's war strategy. But he also couldn't ignore the potential in Ri's eyes. He had seen it firsthand. Those Mangekyo Sharingan eyes had already given Ri immense power. If they evolved again, Ri might become a genuine special grade sorcerer. And that meant their chances of victory would increase. After a moment, Geto exhaled. Fine. But soon, he regretted it. As Ri absorbed more and more cursed spirits, Geto noticed something. At first, Grade 2 and Grade 3 spirits fed his eyes normally. But as the process continued, the returns began to diminish. Only Grade 1 cursed spirits provided any noticeable growth. And yet even as cursed energy surged around him, Ri's mind remained intact. His body continued to absorb negativity without breaking. Then a critical point was reached. As the last Grade 1 cursed spirit vanished, the air itself trembled. An ocean of cursed energy erupted around Ro, shaking the entire temple. This feeling. Geto's breath hitched as he watched in awe. Chapter 41, A Gift from Geto Siguru. Standing amidst the swirling black ocean of cursed energy, Riz stretched his body, feeling an intoxicating surge of power course through him. Thanks for the gift, Geto Siguru. His Mangekyo Sharingan had reached yet another level. The changes were subtle yet profound. He could feel the transformation in both his ocular abilities and cursed energy output. Meanwhile, Geto stood to the side, his face unreadable, though his thoughts could be summed up as, what kind of monster have I just created? After observing Ri for a while, Geto finally commented, aside from the fact that you feel even more ominous, your appearance hasn't changed much. There are some differences from what I expected. Ri admitted, tapping his temple. But the results are exactly what I wanted. While his eyes hadn't taken on the classic shape of the Eternal Mangekyo, their function had essentially surpassed it. The greatest advantage of the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan was the removal of blindness and a drastic boost in power. But now, Ri's vision remained unaffected, and his pupil techniques had evolved yet again. Not a bad deal. Ri smirked before glancing at Geto. To be honest, I don't think you could beat me anymore. The temperature around them dropped. Geto's expression didn't change, but the shift in energy was palpable. What the hell does that mean? Had Ri seriously thought he could defeat a special grade sorcerer before? A flicker of irritation crossed Geto's face, but he quickly suppressed it, letting his cursed energy settle. He had no intention of fighting Ri at this moment. Instead, he simply clapped his hands together. That confidence suits you, Ryu-kun. At this point, Gito continued, there's no doubt you've reached the level of a special grade sorcerer. He smirked. You know, there are only 4 officially recognized special grade sorcerers in the world. And yet, you managed to reach the pinnacle of jujutsu in just 1 month. Truly, Ryu-kun, you are nothing short of a miracle. Though his words were flattering, his mind was elsewhere. If Ryo, a newly ascended special grade, can't defeat Gojo, then at the very least, he can keep him occupied for a long time. And that was all Gito needed. As long as Gojo Satoru was occupied, his plan to claim Utaha would succeed. His victory would be guaranteed. This is all thanks to you, Ryu admitted. Just a month ago, he couldn't have dreamed of wielding this level of power. At this moment, Gito's entire existence felt particularly pleasing to him. Although, Gito sighed. This little stunt cost me a fortune. Nearly 60 grade 1 cursed spirits, almost 100 semi-grade 1s, and hundreds more of lower ranks. Your appetite is truly unimaginable. Hearing those numbers, even Ryu was a little surprised. He thought back to the battles ahead and asked, how much do you have left? Gito did a quick count. Only about 30 grade 1 cursed spirits remaining, more than 400 grade 2s, and several thousand lower grade spirits. Ryu was stunned. And that wasn't even counting the special grade 1s. Special grade sorcerers are said to be able to overthrow nations on their own. Compared to other individual monsters, Gito commanding an entire army of cursed spirits made his power far more terrifying. Even with what you have left, Ryu muttered, this should still be enough to lure Jujutsu away. Then, he asked the most important question. So, when are you going to make your move? I haven't officially declared war on Jujutsu yet, Gito admitted. But as for the date? He smirked. December 24th. Ryu narrowed his eyes. Christmas Eve, huh? It was exactly the same date as in the original timeline. That meant no matter how much Ryu's presence had changed things, some events were still bound to happen. Understood. He nodded. Then, I'll return to Star Religious Group that day. No need for that, Gito said. He gave Ryu a clear location. On December 24th, the battle will take place in Shinjuku, Tokyo. Got it, Ryu said. Just send me an email before it all begins. Seeing that the time and place were set, Ryu had no reason to stay. As he turned to leave, Gito spoke up, sounding almost regretful. It's rare for you to visit, Ryu-kun, he said. Leaving so soon? As a student, I'm quite busy. Ha. I remember those days. Gito chuckled. Being a student was exhausting in every sense. For a brief moment, he seemed lost in nostalgia. Jujutsu was a place filled with memories both good and painful. And this upcoming battle. This was the first time since betraying Jujutsu that he would face his former friends head-on. Ryu noticed Gito's distant expression but didn't comment. Instead, he waved lazily and headed for the exit. Then, I'll leave you to your preparations. Wait. Ryu turned back. Gito held out his hand. A small, black mist swirled in his palm before forming into a tiny cursed spirit. What's this? Ryu asked, raising an eyebrow. A cursed energy tracker. Gito explained. It can sense and record an individual's cursed energy signature. I imprinted my own energy into it so you'll know exactly when the battle begins. Ryu nodded, taking the small spirit into his right hand. But the moment he did, a strange distortion rippled through the air. Before Gito could react, a massive vortex formed in front of Ryu. The tiny cursed spirit was sucked inside in an instant. Gito's eyes widened. A new ability? Ryu smirked. Both of my eyes evolved again, of course, they'd gained something new. Interesting. Gito muttered, rubbing his chin. He watched as Ryu activated his Mangekyo Sharingan again. This time a larger vortex formed around his body. And within seconds Ryu vanished into the distortion. Watching the last traces of Ryu disappear, Gito tapped his chin thoughtfully. Space storage? Or maybe spatial teleportation? He exhaled. If his abilities are incorporating spatial manipulation, this is becoming even more fascinating. Honestly, his power is starting to feel just as broken as the Six Eyes. Then, he remembered something. Ah. I forgot to tell him. Domain expansion disclosure boosts a sorcerer's abilities. Shaking his head, Gito turned toward the gathering cursed users of Star Religious Group. With a bright grin, he clapped his hands together. Alright, everyone. Next stop Jujutsu. Chapter 42, The Declaration of War. The outskirts of Tokyo were sparsely populated, filled with traditional houses and quiet pathways. On the surface, it looked like a prestigious school established by the government. But in truth this was the Tokyo Jujutsu, an institution dedicated to training Jujutsu sorcerers. And today, the school was on edge. Not long ago, Gito Suguru had made his move, testing Utaha. As a result, two of the most powerful sorcerers in Japan, Gojo Satoru and Masamaki Yaga, the principal of Tokyo Jujutsu High, were forced to discuss the situation. Standing on the second floor of the school, overlooking the first-year students below, Yaga sighed as he stroked his chin. We still haven't figured out what Gito's next move is. Maybe we're just overthinking things. Principal. Gojo Satoru replied, adjusting his blindfold. I went there myself. I saw it with my own eyes. That was definitely Gito's cursed energy. His voice was unusually serious. I don't know what he's planning yet, but Gito doesn't show himself without a reason. If he made a move, then something big is coming. Yaga rubbed his temples, already feeling a headache coming on. Gito Suguru, once an outstanding student of Jujutsu High, had turned into Japan's worst curse user, bent on exterminating non-sorcerers. And considering the scale of his techniques, if Gito acts, it won't just be a fight. It'll be mass destruction. Just as that thought crossed his mind, Gojo snapped his head up and looked at the sky. The next moment a sharp alarm went off across the school. Yaga's expression darkened. The barrier. He muttered. It had been triggered. Meaning only one person could be here, Gito Suguru. Yaga immediately barked orders. Gather all grade 1 and higher sorcerers at the front gate. At the entrance of the school, 4 first-year students stood still, staring up at the sky. Hovering above them, a massive pelican-like cursed spirit flapped its wings. Whoa. Maki Zenin murmured, adjusting her glasses. This is rare. Yucha's intuition was spot on. Panda added, standing with his arms crossed. The barrier of Jujutsu High hadn't been breached in years. Now, right in front of them, a messenger cursed spirit had descended. A moment later, the large cursed bird opened its beak. And from within 3 figures stepped down. As his feet touched the ground, Gito Suguru looked around. His expression was neutral, nearly bored. This place hasn't changed at all. He muttered. Beside him, Nanako Heisabe crossed her arms, unimpressed. Yeah, this place is kinda ugly. She said bluntly. Across from them, Panda, Maki, and Togenumaki immediately moved into combat stances. They didn't know who these intruders were, but their instincts screamed danger. Only Yuta Okatsu hesitated. Something about Gito's presence felt different. Before Yuta could react, Gito moved. Fast. Too fast. In an instant, Gito closed the gap between them and grabbed Yuta's wrist. The 3 other students widened their eyes in shock. When did he? We didn't even see him move. Ignoring them, Gito kept his gentle smile as he spoke. Nice to meet you, Yuta Okatsu. My name is Gito Suguru. Gito's grip was light, but his words carried weight. You have incredible power, Yuta. I believe that power should be used for something greater. Yuta frowned. What do you mean? Gito let out a deep sigh, shaking his head. Right now, the world is controlled by non-sorcerers. They don't understand our struggles. They rely on us to clean up their messes. And yet we are the ones who have to hide. Why should the strong bow to the weak? Doesn't that sound wrong to you? Yuta didn't answer right away. Maki and Panda, however, immediately stepped forward. I suggest you back off. Maki warned. Don't start feeding my classmate crazy ideas. At that moment a familiar voice called out. Yo. At the sound of that voice, Gito turned with a smile. Long time no see, Gojo Satoru. Standing at the front of the school, Gojo Satoru had arrived. And behind him every grade 1 sorcerer from Jujutsu High stood ready. Gito took one glance at their numbers. Good. They're all here. His true goal had already been achieved. There was no need to prolong this meeting. He sighed, releasing Yuta's wrist. It's a shame. He murmured. This reunion could have been so much more. Gojo's eyes narrowed behind his blindfold. Cut the bullshit. He said flatly. What do you want, Gito? Gito's smile widened. I'm here to declare war. His voice rang out, clear and confident. On December 24th, at sunset I will unleash 1,000 curse spirits upon Shinjuku and Kyoto. Gojo's fists clenched. Gito's smile darkened. This will be a battle to the death. The Jujutsu sorcerers who claim to protect the world will have to fight for their lives to stop the massacre. Yuta, Maki, and the others froze at the sheer scale of the threat. You bastard. Gojo muttered. You really think you'll win? Gito chuckled. I know I will. Because this time. He glanced back at Yuta before locking eyes with Gojo. This time, I have a genius stronger than Yuta Okatsu on my side. For the first time in years Gojo felt a shiver run down his spine. Chapter 43, A Genius Awakens. Inside the backseat of a taxi, Ri leaned back, eyes half-lidded, still feeling the after-effects of his evolution. His return from Gito Suguru's base had been more than worthwhile. His Mangekyo Sharingan had advanced to a new level, His cursed energy had refined itself even further, and most importantly he had awakened a new ability. The previous boost in his Mangekyo had already granted him access to Amaterasu, Tsukuyomi, and Susanoo, all cornerstones of the Uchiha's legendary power. But now, with his transformation, he had acquired something even more terrifying. A technique that transcended physical space. A broken ability, renowned in another world. Sitting in the taxi, refocused inward, analyzing this newfound power. His understanding of Kamyu became clearer. His right eye granted intangibility and allowed him to enter a personal dimensional space perfect for defense or hiding. His left eye could distort space itself, erasing attacks or sending them elsewhere, turning offense into an unstoppable force. Together, they created the ultimate balance: untouchable defense, unavoidable offense. What made this power truly terrifying, though, was its mobility. By combining both eyes, he could phase into his personal space and then exit anywhere within range, effectively teleporting across short distances. So far, his range was limited from the peak of Gito's temple to a few hundred meters down the mountain. That was why he still needed a taxi home. But with time, thousands of meters, maybe even entire cities. For now, though, he turned his gaze toward his reflection in a car window. The red glow of his Mangekyo Sharingan pulsed like a dying ember. Right now, I might already be the strongest Jujutsu sorcerer in the world. Everyone hailed Gojo Satoru as the pinnacle of the modern Jujutsu world. But who knew the truth? Gojo's infinity made him untouchable, an absolute rule of space that repelled attacks the closer they got. But there was one thing infinity couldn't block. Spatial manipulation. Just like domain expansion bypassed infinity, so too did techniques that cut through space itself. Riz smiled. I'm his natural enemy. If Gojo had one advantage over him, it was domain expansion. But with Kamui, even that might not be a concern. I guess we'll find out on Christmas Eve. He could feel it, the hunger to test his power, to see how far he could go. And it seemed he was about to get his chance. The taxi pulled up in front of his house. Repaid the driver, stepped out, and walked toward the entrance. Thanks to the family group, he had replaced his door lock with a keypad system, making it easier for certain people to come and go freely. As he reached for the code panel, he paused. His cursed energy detection flared. There was someone inside. Not an intruder, someone familiar. Riz smirked, then silently activated Kamui. A vortex of space twisted open and he phased directly into the living room. Inside his room, Yumiko merely sprawled across his bed, bundled in his blanket, eyes closed in pure bliss. Her normally composed and queen-like demeanor had melted away in his absence. As if she were savoring the scent left behind. Ri leaned against the doorway, watching with amusement. You seem to be enjoying yourself, Yumiko. Mira froze. Her eyes snapped open, face flushing instantly. She bolted upright, tossing aside the blanket in a panic. You. She pointed at him with shaky hands. I was just napping. That's it. Ri chuckled. She's terrible at lying. Of course. He replied smoothly. It's not like I thought anything weird was going on. Exactly. Yumiko nodded, then paused. Wait. That wording sounded wrong. Did she just confirm she was doing something weird? Her face burned brighter. Click. A soft camera shutter sound echoed through the room. Yumiko's soul nearly left her body. She snapped her head toward Ri only to see him casually holding his phone, smirking. He turned the screen toward her. A perfect shot of Mira Yumiko, blushing furiously in his bed. Not bad. Ri mused. I got a really cute shot of you. Yumiko lunged. Delete that right now. Ri sidestepped her grab, raising his arms in mock surrender. She tried again. And again. But it was pointless. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't catch him. Eventually, she gave up, chest heaving in frustration. Fine. She growled, glaring at him. But you better not show that to anyone. Relax. Ri pocketed his phone. I wouldn't dare show it to anyone else. His smirk widened. Unless. Maybe Utaha asks to see it. Yumiko's face darkened. I will end you. Once she had recovered, Yumiko adjusted her clothes and turned back to Ro. Anyway. She said, hands on her hips. Get dressed. We're going out. Ri raised an eyebrow. Now. It's Saturday night, and I spent way too long picking out an outfit to just stay home. She huffed. Ri glanced at the darkening sky. He had already made his moves with Gito. There was still time before Christmas Eve. Maybe a night out wouldn't be the worst thing. Especially if it meant more entertainment at Yumiko's expense. He smirked. Fine. But I get to pick where we go. Yumiko crossed her arms. Deal. But no word magic shit. No promises. And just like that, Riz night had found a new purpose. Chapter 44, A Queen's Plans. In the end, Ri didn't reject her. After all, if a group of beautiful, Extraordinary Woman was willing to accept a harem. He wasn't about to disappoint them. He had his principles and one of them was keeping them happy. Alright, let's go, he said casually. Miro Yumiko, however, didn't move. She simply stared at him, arms crossed. Are you seriously going out like that? Returned toward the full-length mirror, glancing over himself. He was always conscious of his appearance, a habit born not out of vanity but necessity. A great man had to exude presence. First impressions mattered, posture, physique, clothing, aura all played a role. And right now, everything seemed fine. I don't see the problem, he replied. Yumiko tilted her head, eyes gleaming with something mischievous. There isn't one, she admitted. But I bought you something better. She held out a shopping bag. Raised an eyebrow but took it, pulling out a t-shirt and a sweatshirt. It didn't take him long to notice their matching. He realized. Yumiko gave a smug nod. You should wear it. I already washed them for you. Took a deep breath, catching the faint scent of fresh detergent, a detail that made him chuckle. He had a mild case of OCD. He hated wearing new clothes without washing them first. Yumiko had remembered. Alright, I'll try it on. He pulled his shirt off right there. Yumiko's eyes widened. But she didn't look away. She just stared. Most people assumed men were visual creatures but women weren't any different. And Yumiko was appreciating the view. By the time he had the new clothes on, it was a perfect fit. Well? He asked. Yumiko, who had been confident moments ago, suddenly looked nervous. It looks good, she muttered. Riz smirked. Of course it does. I trust your taste. Yumiko preened, flipping her golden hair with satisfaction. Obviously. But just as she was about to revel in her victory, something caught her attention. Her eyes locked onto his neck and narrowed. She stepped forward, leaning in close. Wait. What is this? Riz stiffened. Oh. He had forgotten. Kasumijoka Utaha had left a mark. It wasn't obvious but Yumiko was too sharp to miss it. Her fingers brushed over the faint trace of lipstick. Then, her expression darkened. Kasumijoka, she muttered through gritted teeth. Ri barely opened his mouth before Yumiko sighed. Forget it, she said, rolling her eyes. Let's just go. She didn't press further but the dangerous glint in her eyes made one thing very clear. Utaha was going to pay for this. After changing into the couple's outfit, the two headed out. Yumiko had already planned their night. Her first destination? The commercial district. Rather than walk, she called for a ride. In the car, Ri couldn't help but compare her to Utaha. When he was with Utaha, she would sometimes play with his hair or use the ride as an opportunity to whisper something dangerous. Yumiko, though? She just held his hand. It was simple. Quiet. It suited her. So different, yet equally entertaining. Ri chuckled to himself. What's funny? Yumiko asked. Nothing, he said. Just thinking about something. She gave him a suspicious glance but let it slide. By the time they arrived at the shopping district, the streets were packed with people. Ri sighed. Did everyone in town decide to come here today? Even though it wasn't a holiday, the crowds were insane. No wonder Gito chose Christmas Eve for his plan. If Tokyo was this crowded on a normal weekend, Christmas Eve in Shinjuku was going to be chaos. Let's go shopping first, Yumiko announced. Ri had no objections. Shopping itself wasn't the point, spending time with her was. But he quickly learned something new about her. Unlike other girls who browsed, compared, and hesitated, Yumiko saw something she liked. She bought it instantly. No second guessing. No hesitation. By the time an hour passed, Ri was holding more bags than he could count. Yumiko, suddenly self-aware, tilted her head. Not the date you were expecting? She asked. Ri smirked. It's fine. You got me something too, right? She brightened. Of course. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, she squeezed his hand tighter. Next stop, the hotel. Ri blinked. The what? He had assumed they would catch a movie or grab food. But somehow they had skipped all of that and gone straight to you booked a hotel? Ri asked, dumbfounded. Yumiko nodded casually, as if she had just suggested getting coffee. Shopping is just the warm-up, she said smoothly. The real event is at the hotel. She grabbed his wrist and pulled him forward. Let's go. Ri let himself be dragged along, still processing. But as they approached the entrance, something hit him. He stopped walking. Yumiko turned to look at him, confused. What? Ri slowly raised a finger, pointing at the hotel sign. She followed his gaze and froze. The words Love Hotel stared back at them boldly. Yumiko's entire face turned red. Wait. She pulled out her phone, checking the reservation and gasped. I thought this was just a fancy hotel. She turned to Ri, mortified. I didn't mean to book that kind of hotel. Ri simply stared at her. Then he grinned. So, he said, crossing his arms. Do we cancel the reservation, or? Yumeko froze up, steam practically rising from her head. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Then let's at least go inside first. She grabbed his wrist again and marched forward, avoiding eye contact. Laughed. This night had suddenly gotten very interesting. Chapter 45, A Sister's Warning. Outside the bustling commercial district, inside a quiet cafe, a girl sat by the window, engrossed in a book. Her waist-length black hair cascaded over her shoulders, her fair skin almost translucent under the cafe lights. Though her chest was modest, her slender figure exuded elegance, making her naturally stand out even in a casual outfit. Yukino Shita Yukino. Her presence alone attracted stares, but no one dared to approach. Not after witnessing her sharp tongue ruthlessly shut down a boy who had attempted to flirt earlier. She was the very definition of a flower on a high mountain, admired from afar, but untouchable. However, the cold atmosphere around her was soon shattered. A woman similar in appearance but with a considerably different figure slid smoothly into the seat across from her, flashing a mischievous smile. Oh, what a coincidence, Yukino-chan. Yukino looked up, startled. Ne-san? Yukino Shita Haruno beamed. It's the weekend, so your Dion-san thought she'd take a little break. Imagine my surprise running into my adorable little sister. Yukino frowned, clearly unconvinced. Still, she sighed and closed her book. Is there something you need? Haruno gasped dramatically. We haven't seen each other in so long, and you're being so cold. How cruel. Seeing that Yukino remained unimpressed, she chuckled and changed tactics. Actually, Mother wanted me to check on you. Since you've moved out, she's been concerned about how you're doing. At the mention of their mother, Yukino's expression darkened. She turned toward the window. I can take care of myself. Haruno nodded, pretending to agree. In reality, she knew Yukino's situation all too well. The apartment Yukino lived in? Owned by the Yukino Shita family. Surveillance? Already in place. Everything her little sister did was still within the family's grasp, even if she refused to acknowledge it. The truth was, Haruno hadn't come here for their mother's sake. She had simply missed her little sister. But just as she was about to tease her again, she noticed something. Yukino was staring out the window, her eyes slightly widened. Haruno followed her gaze. Outside, walking hand in hand, was a strikingly good-looking couple. Haruno smirked. Ah, young love, she teased. Yukino-chan, are you finally at that age where you want a boyfriend? Yukino turned back, flustered. Stop saying nonsense. That guy is a student from my school. Haruno raised an eyebrow, her interest piqued. A student? She took another look at the pair. The boy was undeniably attractive, exuding a confident aura that made him stand out. But what caught Haruno's attention even more was the direction they were heading, a love hotel. Oh. This just got interesting. Haruno grinned. Come on, Yukino-chan, there's definitely a story here. Yukino's face remained cold. It has nothing to do with you. Her resistance only made Haruno more amused. Oh, come on. Still. Who was that guy? Yukino sighed, realizing her sister wouldn't let it go. He's a first-year, a well-known figure in school. I heard rumors that he's involved with the senpai, but clearly, the girl with him just now wasn't her. Haruno's interest faded instantly. A player, huh? She lost all enthusiasm and leaned back. Yukino-chan, listen to your wise older sister, never date guys like that. They're trouble. I'm not even thinking about dating right now. Yukino huffed. Haruno smiled knowingly. Yet you recognized him immediately. Yukino ignored her and stood up. I'm leaving. Wait. Haruno quickly grabbed her wrist. Her usual playfulness was gone, replaced with something serious. Yukino. On December 24th, don't go to Shinjuku. Yukino hesitated. Christmas Eve? Why? Haruno shrugged. Who knows? It's just something Mother heard from an upper-level source. She warned me, so I'm warning you. That was half the truth. The Yukino Shita family had deep political ties, and Haruno had access to classified information. She wasn't ignorant of the supernatural world. And if the government was issuing quiet warnings about Shinjuku? Something big was coming. Yukino frowned but nodded. I'll keep that in mind. Meanwhile, inside the Love Hotel, Ru watched in amusement as Miro Yumeko disappeared into the bathroom. When she finally emerged, his eyes widened. She was wearing a bunny girl outfit. A bath towel loosely covered the exposed parts, but the intention was obvious. Yumeko shifted awkwardly, her face flushed. Because you mentioned something about bunny girls to Kasumi Joko before. She muttered. So. I bought one. Just for this. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Ru blinked. Deja vu. She had said almost the exact same thing as Utaha. And the outfit was identical. But with a different woman, the effect was entirely new. She was stunning. "Well?" Yumiko asked hesitantly. Riz smirked. "You look amazing." Yumiko's cheeks turned an even deeper shade of red. She turned her face away, unable to meet his gaze. Her voice was soft, almost trembling. "My birthday is coming soon. But I wanted my gift early." Riz's eyes darkened. "Yumiko." She still refused to meet his gaze, gripping the towel tightly. "Then shut up and just kiss me." And Riz didn't need to be told twice. Chapter 46, The Gift She Wanted. Riz could feel Miro Yumiko's warmth as she leaned into him, her arms wrapping tightly around his neck. She was bold, braver than he had expected. He met her affection with equal intensity, making sure she felt everything the sweetness of desire fulfilled, the overwhelming reality of what she had chosen. And once again, after Utaha, Riz had embraced another proud, beautiful girl. A genuine sense of satisfaction welled up inside him. Praise the world. As the night settled, remnants of what they had done lay scattered. A certain set of Krypton gold props, meant to increase attack speed, now discarded and ruined beyond repair. Yumiko lay against his chest, still catching her breath, her face flushed, strands of blonde hair sticking to her skin. Riz smirked, tightening his arms around her. Satisfied? Hearing his question, Yumiko quickly lowered her head, hiding her face against him. What do you mean?" she stammered, pretending not to understand. "I don't know what you're talking about." Her usual queen-like demeanor was nowhere to be found. Riz chuckled, enjoying this rarely seen side of hers. Still, something had been on his mind. "Yumiko. You knew a lot more than I expected." Her body stiffened slightly. Though she had been inexperienced, her boldness in certain areas had surprised him. After a brief moment of silence, she sighed, clearly reluctant but unable to avoid his question. "It was Utaha," she admitted. Riz raised an eyebrow. So that was the secret they had been keeping from him. No wonder they had been whispering behind his back. "And this?" He gestured toward the now ruined Krypton gold prop. Yumiko hesitated but nodded. "Yeah. She said it was for your weird fetish." Riz nearly choked. "Weird fetish?" Yumiko smiled triumphantly, as if finally getting revenge for all the teasing he had put her through. "Well, wasn't she right?" Riz sighed, shaking his head. "It's not a weird fetish, it's just normal role-playing. Every man would appreciate it." Yumiko playfully twisted in his arms. Sure. Whatever helps you sleep at night." Riz exhaled. Utaha was definitely behind this. Still, he wasn't complaining. His mind briefly drifted back to last night, the way Utaha had surprised him with the same outfit. So that wasn't just a reward, she had been one step ahead of Yumiko again. "Your relationship with Utaha is getting better, huh?" he asked casually. Yumiko scoffed. "I wouldn't say that. I just accepted her help this one time." She still wasn't willing to acknowledge Utaha as an ally. Though, considering how things had started between them, this was definitely progress. Riz smirked but let it go. "I just didn't expect this to be the birthday gift you wanted." December 12th was still a few days away, a Tuesday. Since it was a school day, it made sense that she wanted to celebrate early over the weekend. Yumiko smiled softly, her fingers tracing lazy circles on his chest. "Well, it's my birthday. So I get to choose my gift." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "And this was the only gift I wanted this year." "Damn." Riz stared at her, his chest tightening slightly. That was too much of a love confession. "Yumiko." His voice was husky, his grip tightening slightly. "You keep saying things like that, and I might not be able to hold back." Yumiko immediately sat up, wrapping herself in the sheets. "No way." She pointed at him defensively. "You're my birthday gift for the weekend, but tomorrow is our actual date." Riz laughed, holding up his hands in surrender. Fine. Still, something was on his mind. But why the hotel? Wouldn't it have been more memorable at home? Yumiko gave him a flat stare. "Because I wanted to go shopping first." Then, she turned her face away, her ears turning red. "And also, because I didn't want to do this in a bed that smelled like Utaha." Riz blinked. He had cleaned everything before leaving that morning. But somehow, she knew. Yumiko was way too sharp. The next morning Riz was woken up by the persistent buzzing of his phone. His phone was on Do Not Disturb, which meant that only certain people could get through. Reaching over to the bedside table, he grabbed it, half expecting to see Utaha's name. But it wasn't her. It was Suguru Kido. Ryu's eyes narrowed. He only kept Kido's notifications on because of the upcoming Hyaki Yagyo, Night Parade of 100 Demons. He clicked on the message. "I've officially declared war on Jujutsu High. Christmas Eve. Shinjuku, Tokyo. I hope you're ready, Ryu." Ryu exhaled, running a hand through his hair. The final confirmation had come. He replied with a simple, "Understood." Almost immediately, another message arrived. Good luck in battle. Attached was a list of data details on Jujutsu High's strongest fighters. Riz scrolled through it. Gojo Satoru. Yuta Okatsu. Zenin Maki. Inumaki Toge. Panda. Fushiguro Megumi. And more. Gito had just handed him the profiles of his future opponents. Christmas Eve. The day of reckoning. Riz's lips curled into a slow, dangerous smile. Finally. Chapter 47, the Shinomiya family's plan. The second day of the weekend. Since he had been woken up by Suguru Gito's message, Ri got out of bed, stretching lazily. There was nothing left to prepare for Hyakki Yagyo. After all, Ri knew more about Jujutsu High's sorcerers than anything listed in Gito's email. For now, all he could do was wait for Christmas Eve. But before that, Ri made sure to fulfill Miro Yumiko's expectations. After yesterday's shopping spree, they continued hitting all the must-visit spots for high school couples: amusement parks, movie theaters, cafes, the typical date spots. For Yumiko, it was the perfect weekend. For Ru, it was a temporary distraction before stepping onto the battlefield. Meanwhile, at Kito's cult. Since Ri had officially joined their cause, everyone at Kito's cult was completely confident in their upcoming victory. A war was coming. Yet Kito Suguru, rather than being stressed, was hosting a celebration. Ladies and gentlemen, let us raise our glasses. Gito grinned, standing before a crowd of followers. Let us celebrate our inevitable victory. Oh! Cheers erupted throughout the hall. With two special grade sorcerers on their side, how could they possibly lose? Meanwhile, at Jujutsu High. The mood at Tokyo Jujutsu High was completely different. A tense war council was underway. In the principal's office, Masamaki Yaga sat at the head of the table, surrounded by Tokyo and Kyoto Jujutsu sorcerers. The night parade of 100 demons was coming. And Suguru Gito was leading it. Gito Suguru is an expert in cursed spirit manipulation. Explained Eri Shoko, the auxiliary manager. As a special grade sorcerer, he possesses a legion of cursed spirits enough to level an entire country. Yeah, we know that already, a sultry voice interrupted. Sitting back with her arms crossed, Utaha smirked. But no matter how many cursed spirits he has, they're still just cursed spirits. The advantage is still ours. The room murmured in agreement. After all, Gojo Satoru alone could handle 99% of the threats. And with Jujutsu High's elite forces, the big three sorcerer families, and countless reinforcements, the battle seemed one-sided. But Gojo, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. Don't be stupid. His usual carefree expression was gone. Gito isn't an idiot. He wouldn't declare war unless he thought he had a chance. His eyes narrowed behind his sunglasses. And from what he said before leaving, the real issue is that so-called genius standing beside him. Masamaki Yaga frowned. Not Tsukawaro. The mysterious first-year sorcerer. Nobody had even heard of him until recently, yet Gito spoke of him with confidence. We can't take any risks. Yaga declared. The weaker students, like Yuta and Maki, will stay behind. The rest of us move to Kyoto immediately. This time, we're going to end Gito Suguru for good. The room fell silent. And then TCH. A sharp scoff echoed from the corner. It was Hikari Kinji, Jujutsu High's problem child. He leaned back, arms behind his head, clearly annoyed. This is stupid. He muttered. We're fighting cursed spirits, not an army. You don't need 100 sorcerers for this. Then, he stood up. I'm out. You're what? Yaga glared at him. I'm not joining this pointless mission. Hikari declared. Me and Kaira are sitting this one out. Yaga's grip tightened. But arguing with Hikari was pointless. The Jujutsu world had its fair share of corruption and politics, and Hikari hated all of it. If he wasn't forced to fight, he wouldn't. At the Shinomiya estate. Far away from both sides of the impending battle, a different kind of meeting was taking place. Inside the luxurious Shinomiya family estate, the four direct heirs of Japan's most powerful conglomerate sat at a long conference table. At the head of the table, Shinomiya Genin, the patriarch, sat with his eyes half closed. Sit down. Yes, father. The four siblings took their seats. Shinomiya Oko, the eldest son, wearing a light yellow kimono, slouched in his chair. Shinomiya Sairyu, the second son, sat calmly, indifferent to the meeting. Shinomiya Unio, the third son, had once fought for power only to be crushed by Uko. Shinomiya Kaguya, the youngest and only daughter, remained composed, her expression unreadable. The last time all four siblings had gathered in one place was over a year ago. Something serious was happening. Without another word, Ganon gestured to his assistant. A thick document was placed before each of them. Silence filled the room as the four heirs flipped through the files. But Kaguya, Upon seeing the name written inside, froze. Natsukawa. A first-year student at Takasabu Academy. Handsome, athletic, and highly influential at school. Oko snorted. Father, is this some kind of joke? Are we investing in a high school athlete now? Ganon sighed, rubbing his temples. As the eldest son, I expected better from you. Oko's smirk disappeared. Read all of it before you embarrass yourself. With a scowl, Oko flipped to the next page and his expression changed completely. The file didn't just list his academic or athletic achievements. It contained government-classified information. A personal associate of Suguru Gito. Recognized as a special grade sorcerer. Possesses a power rivaling Gojo Satoru. A key player in the upcoming night parade of 100 demons. Oko's hands tightened on the papers. What is this? He muttered. The truth. Ganon said coldly. He turned his gaze toward Kaguya. This meeting was primarily for you, Kaguya. Her red eyes met her father's. Your birthday banquet is on January 1st. He continued. This year, we will invite Natsukawa. Silence. Then, Kaguya spoke, her voice measured. For what purpose? Ganon smiled slightly. To secure the Shinomiya family's relationship with him. Depending on how things unfold. He may prove more valuable than any business deal. Chapter 48, Undercover. When Shinomiya Kaguya heard her father's words, her body stiffened slightly. For years, she had spent her birthdays quietly at home with Hayasaka, avoiding unnecessary attention. Now, a grand banquet was being arranged. There was no way this was merely a gesture of celebration. She knew her father too well. Something was at play. Understood, father. She replied, lowering her gaze in quiet submission. Shinomiya Ganon's tone had left no room for negotiation. Born into the Shinomiya family, Kaguya had long accepted that her life was never truly hers to control. She had been raised with the finest education, etiquette, and training, destined to serve the family's interests rather than her own. The Shinomiya Zaibatsu had thrived for generations under a strict patriarchal hierarchy. As the youngest daughter, she was upon a bargaining chip to be used where necessary. Her deceased mother, Nao Takashimizu, had been the same. She was once a beautiful and influential woman, but in the end, she was still someone who existed only to benefit the family. And now, Kaguya herself was no different. Her birthday was nothing more than a tool for her father's political maneuvers. How laughable. Even at the top of the world, she still felt so powerless. She didn't know that this decision wasn't just about her. That Natsukawa's existence had truly intrigued her father. If he was really as powerful as the reports claimed, then the Shinomiya family had no choice but to take action. Good. Ganon said, nodding in approval. Then that settles it. With that, the meeting was dismissed. Kaguya stood up silently, following her brothers as they exited the conference room. But behind them, in the dimly lit room, one person remained lost in thought. Shinomiya Oko. The eldest son and the next in line to inherit the Zaibatsu. As he sat in the back seat of his luxury car, his fingers tapped against the armrest in irritation. If Natsukawa really was a special grade sorcerer, that would be an unparalleled asset for the family. But if he became too close to Kaguya, then she could turn into a threat to his power. He couldn't allow that. A smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. Fortunately, he had placed someone near Kaguya long ago. A spy. At the time, it was nothing more than a formality, a way to monitor her mundane school life. A waste of time. Or so he thought. Now, however, that undercover agent had finally become useful. December 20th, just 2 days before Christmas Eve. The city was already buzzing with rumors. Across the hallways of Takasabu Academy, students whispered excitedly between classes. Did you hear? Shinjuku is getting locked down on the 24th. Huh? A lockdown? They're saying it's an evacuation drill or something. Evacuation? Like an earthquake drill? But why clear out the entire area? Even residents aren't allowed to go home that night. Sounds suspicious. Maybe the government's doing some classified experiment? Bro, you read too many conspiracy theories. It's probably just some gas leak or something. But why Christmas Eve? And why Shinjuku of all places? Whatever, as long as they don't cancel anime broadcasts, I don't care. Despite the government's attempts to suppress information, speculation had already spread like wildfire. Especially among those who knew the truth. Inside a quiet clubroom, a group of 4 girls gathered. So, Ryukun. Kasumadoka Utaha spoke first, her tone casual but inquisitive. Do you know anything about what's going on in Shinjuku? At her words, the other girls turned their attention toward him. Utaha's calm voice carried a hint of expectation, as if she already suspected something. After all, Natsukawa was not a normal student. Lying lazily on the sofa, Ryu let out a small sigh. As expected. He muttered. Can't keep anything a secret, huh? Then, raising his head slightly, he replied, yeah. It's a battle. A battle? Miro Yumiko frowned. Between Jujutsu sorcerers and curse users. Ryu explained. They're using Shinjuku as the battleground. The government's just trying to keep civilians out of the crossfire. The room fell silent. Finally, Yotsuya Miko broke the silence. Then. Are you going to be involved? She asked cautiously. Ryu nodded without hesitation. I've been waiting for this for a long time. He admitted. The only reason I didn't tell you guys earlier was to avoid worrying you. But I guess that's not happening now. Miro Yumiko crossed her arms. That's an understatement. She muttered, clearly annoyed. You're really jumping into something this dangerous? Even Utaha, who was usually calm, narrowed her eyes. You're our leader, she said, her tone serious. Your safety is our top priority. Don't forget that. Miko, Yumiko, and Utaha all watched him closely, their expressions full of concern. Riz smiled. Relax. He assured them. I know my limits. At that moment, Okatoko, their spiritual mentor, finally spoke up. I don't know much about your world. She admitted. But based on what I've observed, Natsukawa-sama is undoubtedly among the strongest. Hearing this, the girls exchanged glances. Slowly, they began to relax. The tension eased slightly, and Rit took the opportunity to shift the mood. Well, since Christmas Eve is a big deal, why don't all three of you come to my place that night? He suggested. Before anyone could react, wait. A sudden protest came from the side. Hana Yurikawa, who had been quietly eating snacks, suddenly jumped up. Why wasn't I invited? She pouted. Aren't we all in the same club? And another thing, what did Utaha-senpai mean by leader just now? Are you guys hiding something from me? Instantly, Miko panicked. No. No. It's nothing. It's just like a club president title. Yeah. Yumiko nodded quickly. Nothing weird at all. Utaha simply chuckled. As Miko and Yumiko desperately tried to cover up the truth, Riz sat back with a smirk. Looks like Christmas Eve was going to be even more interesting than he expected. Chapter 49, Cheer Up. In the end, Yurikawa Hana was successfully fooled by Yotsuya Miko. She now saw the whole leader thing as nothing more than a club activity, which meant she couldn't be refused when visiting Riz's house. Naturally, Miko and the others couldn't find an excuse to stop her anymore. Ryu, of course, didn't mind this outcome at all. But things were still carefully planned. A single day was divided into 3 distinct time slots, morning, afternoon, evening, and on the Saturday before Christmas Eve, Mira Yumiko, Kasumijoka Utaha, and Miko had all perfectly scheduled their time. Each of them arrived at different times of the day. Morning, Yotsuya Miko showed up first, bringing a homemade breakfast from her mother. She had become more familiar with Riz's home and cleaned up his place naturally before they spent a quiet morning together. By noon, she had left to visit Okatoko. With more girls visiting his house regularly, Okatoko had started spending less time guarding the place and more time teaching them. To make things easier, she had even moved into a nearby apartment to focus on her work. From lunch to dinner, both Yumiko and Utaha arrived at separate times. And unlike Miko's quiet morning, these two were far more enthusiastic. One had already experienced it once, and the other was just as competitive. Needless to say, both had their moments with Ryu, and everything progressed naturally. Miro Yumiko, in particular, made sure to arrive earlier in the afternoon so she wouldn't have to deal with Utaha's presence at night. Kasumijoka Utaha, of course, found it amusing and didn't even try to argue. Instead, she took the entire evening for herself, knowing that spending the night was the true advantage. It was the longest time slot, and she was fully aware of it. December 24th, both Riz's allies and enemies were preparing for the inevitable battle at sunset. But in Riz's house, things were still peaceful. At least, for now. Morning, waking up with Utaha still feeling half asleep, Kasumijoka Utaha lazily reached for her phone, her vision blurred. She checked the time and instinctively hit Ryu on the arm. It's already noon. Ryu yawned, glanced at the clock, and waved a hand dismissively. It's fine. I only need 4 hours of rest, including travel time. Utaha stared at him, then chuckled softly. You don't look like someone heading into a serious fight. Fight? No, I'm just going there to have fun. Ryu smirked. Strength alone is more than enough. You're way too confident. Utaha rolled her burgundy eyes but leaned against his chest, her body perfectly relaxed. It's not confidence. It's just reality. Ryu ran his fingers through her silky black hair. Besides, you knew I had something important today, and yet, you still refused to let me sleep last night. Oh? That's funny. Utaha blinked playfully. Because I remember a certain someone being completely willing. Ryu smirked. And yet, every time you stay over, you act more playful than usual. Tyrannosaurus Rex. Huh? That's what you are. Utaha grinned, tapping his forehead. You see meat, and you bite. Ri laughed, enjoying their banter. But then he felt her hand subtly moving under the covers. You say that, but you're the one acting dishonestly. Didn't you complain about waking up late because of me? Utaha's fingers traced his skin teasingly. Well, as your personal writer, it's my duty to cheer you up. Utaha. You're asking for trouble. I know. She smiled mischievously. Noon 30 minutes later, Utaha finally escaped from Ri's grasp. Her legs felt slightly weak, but her expression remained composed. She grabbed her toothbrush, avoiding his smug gaze in the mirror. After finishing up, she stepped out and saw Ri looking far too satisfied. You have way too much fun with this. And yet, you're the one who keeps encouraging it. Ri grinned. Utaha clicked her tongue in frustration. Next time, you're not getting away. Next time? Ri raised an eyebrow. So you're already planning for more? Utaha's cheeks turned slightly pink, but she ignored the comment. Instead, she fixed her clothes and stepped toward the door. Don't get yourself killed tonight. I won't. But if I do, I'll hunt you. TCH, annoying man. But before she left, she turned back and smirked. Fine. If you come back in one piece, I'll reward you. Ri's eyes narrowed with interest. Oh? What kind of reward? I guess you'll just have to survive and find out. With that, she closed the door behind her, leaving Ri fully awake and ready. Evening as Ri made his way toward Shinjuku, the streets were eerily empty. The government's evacuation drills had successfully cleared out the civilians. But unexpectedly, on a deserted street, Ri spotted a lone girl heading in the same direction. She had long black hair and an aura that felt somewhat familiar. Ri stopped in his tracks. Hey, you! The girl froze, turning around with wide, surprised eyes. Are you talking to me? There was a hint of disbelief, but also something else as if she was hoping for this encounter. Ri's instincts sharpened. What are you doing here? Shinjuku is closed off. She hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer. I should be asking you the same thing. Meanwhile, elsewhere. The sun had set, and the black curtain of night had fully fallen. At that moment, far from Shinjuku, Gito Suguru stood before Jujutsu High. He had already received confirmation from his allies Ri had not arrived yet. Gito smirked and pulled out his phone. It's time. Where are you? Ri's voice came through, calm as ever. Got delayed. Almost there. Take your time. My family can stall for a bit. Don't worry. I'll make sure to stop him. As Gito hung up, his expression turned sharp. Come on, Gojo. Let's fight for the sake of justice. And at that moment, the sky over Shinjuku was swallowed in darkness. Thousands of cursed spirits emerged from the shadows, and the Hyakuyaku had begun. Chapter 50, Arrival in Shinjuku. The sheer number of cursed spirits looming over Shinjuku was enough to make any Jujutsu sorcerer tremble. The cursed spirits have begun appearing. This means Master Gito has started his plan. But where is Ro? He still hasn't shown up. He must be nearby. Since Master Gito's cursed spirits have started moving, there's no way he's far. Forget that. Our real problem is the Jujutsu sorcerers down there. From atop a giant pelican-like cursed spirit, perched high on one of Shinjuku's skyscrapers, the curse users allied with Suguru Gito surveyed the battlefield below. Meanwhile, down on the streets, damn it. Gito is making his move. Everyone, get into position. Principal Yaga Masamaki barked out orders as hundreds of curses flooded the streets. But while everyone was tense, Gojo Satoru stood frozen in place, his expression unreadable. Satoru, what's wrong? Yaga asked, sensing something was off. Gojo narrowed his eyes. There's someone up there. And they look like trouble. His gaze locked onto a figure in a black beret, standing on a rooftop, holding an ominous-looking curse tool. Is that the genius Gito was talking about? Yaga frowned. Who knows? Gojo sighed. But whatever he is, he's not a real threat to me. Still, something felt off. Even with 6 eyes, Gojo hadn't sensed Gito's cursed energy at all. If he's planning to face Jujutsu High head-on, Gito wouldn't throw himself into danger so easily. He muttered. Realizing the potential strategy, Gojo's demeanor shifted immediately. Gito's probably heading to the school. Without hesitation, he turned toward Banda and Inumaki. Get back to protect Yuta and the others. I'll catch up soon. With a surge of limitless energy, Gojo activated his teleportation technique, sending the students back to Jujutsu High before launching himself toward the sky. Seeing their cover blown, the curse users sprung into action. The man in the black beret grinned, gripping his cursed tool tightly. Your opponent is me, Satoru Gojo. Gojo smirked. So, you're the so-called genius Kido keeps bragging about? What a waste of my interest. In an instant, their battle ignited, with the entire rooftop shaking from the force of their clash. Meanwhile, outside Shinjuku, Ri hung up his phone, turning his gaze toward the girl in front of him. With long flowing black hair and a striking presence, she was someone impossible to ignore. So that's how you got past the evacuation zones, he muttered, realizing something. Even without wearing a bunny girl outfit, it was obvious she was Mai Sakurajima. At that moment, Mai's eyes lit up. You can really see me. Of course I can. Ri replied matter-of-factly. But now wasn't the time for pleasantries. I know what's happening to you, but now's not the time to explain. Before Mai could respond, a massive shadow loomed overhead. Mai instinctively looked up, and what she saw made her stumble backward in fear. Towering monstrosities with grotesque forms were emerging from the veil of darkness ahead. This was far worse than anything she had ever encountered before. Even for someone used to being ignored by the world, this was on a completely different level. Ri's gaze sharpened as he observed her reaction. You can see them. Mai nodded weakly, her hands trembling. Then you understand how dangerous Shinjuku is right now. Ri's voice remained steady. Get out of here while you still can. Before you're caught up in this mess. But if you want answers, go to Jujutsuhi's removal department and ask for me later. Mai bit her lip, clearly torn. She had spent so long searching for the truth behind her existence, and now she finally had a lead. But as she looked toward the horde of curses flooding Shinjuku, she knew this was not the time to hesitate. Steeling herself, she took one last look at Ro, planting his face into her memory, then turned and ran in the opposite direction. As she disappeared into the distance, Riz smirked. That girl. She's more interesting than I thought. But his attention quickly shifted. Still, the real fun is waiting for me inside. Without another word, Riz's right eye spun, forming a swirling black vortex, and in the blink of an eye, he vanished into the battlefield. Shinjuku, the air reeked of death. Cursed spirits shrieked and wailed, their twisted forms writhing through the city streets. Among them, a tall black-haired woman with a blindfold covering her eyes moved like a phantom. In her hands, a massive executioner's axe, nearly as tall as she was. With a graceful twist of her body, she swung the axe, and in a single motion, dozens of cursed spirits were bisected. Blood and cursed energy splattered across the pavement as she landed elegantly, her face calm. Free. Too easy. Within just 5 minutes, the entire area around her was cleared of curses. She flicked her wrist, counting her takedown rate. 49 grade 2 curses. 7 grade 1s. She grinned. That should be at least a few tens of millions in bounty money. The payout for exterminating curses was insanely high, but an event like the night parade of 100 demons? It was a once-in-a-lifetime payday. Curses and Kito Saguru. She smirked, adjusting her grip on the axe. You guys are really my favorite customers. But just as she was about to move again, her cursed energy flared instinctively. Something felt off. Her eyes narrowed. Then she whipped around just in time to see a figure materializing behind her. A young man with dark hair and piercing eyes. He stood there calmly, as if he had been there all along. Her instincts screamed at her this wasn't just anyone. Who the hell are you? She muttered. Chapter 51, Intangibility. I didn't expect the first Jujutsu sorcerer I'd run into would be you, Mai. Hearing her name spoken so casually, Mai narrowed her eyes, carefully studying the young man in front of her. She had already memorized the faces of both curse users and sorcerers expected to be involved in the night parade of 100 demons. But the boy standing before her, he wasn't one of Guido's curse users, but he wasn't from Jujutsu either. Yet, he had somehow entered Shinjuku, passed through the curtain, and called her by name that meant he was far from ordinary. Mai's mind sharpened, her instincts on high alert. But her expression? A charming smile, her voice silky smooth. My handsome boys sure are dangerous these days. Would you mind telling me why you're here? Ri tilted his head, his tone casual. I owe someone a favor, so I figured I'd lend a hand. Hearing that, Mai nodded in understanding. All of Jujutsuhi's strongest sorcerers were already here, including Gojo Satoru himself. They didn't need extra backup. Then that means... In the very next second, a terrifying burst of speed exploded beneath Mai's feet. 3 meters in a blink. 4 meters in the next. In a single motion, she switched the grip on her massive battle axe and brought it down on Ri's head. Boom. The ground cracked apart, the force sending debris flying into the air. But then Mai's eyes widened in shock. Her attack had phased straight through him. Even her own body had passed through him like an illusion. Instinct screamed. She leaped backward, quickly reassessing. A projection technique? Or a curse technique that makes his body intangible? Meanwhile, returned, looking at her with a mocking grin. Wow, that was dangerous. Didn't even give me a chance to introduce myself. He sighed in mock relief. I even went easy on you, but I guess that wasn't necessary. Mai rested her battle axe on her shoulder, her smirk returning. So, you're with Gito after all? Not exactly. Riz shrugged. I'm here to help him, but I'm not one of his curse users. Is that so? Mai didn't hesitate. She vanished from sight, reappearing directly in front of him and swung her axe once more. Her cursed energy roared, the sheer force capable of cleaving through a first-grade curse spirit. But once again, it phased straight through Riz's body. Mai's expression remained calm. Without stopping, she twisted mid-motion, pulling back her axe and unleashed a flurry of 4 consecutive strikes. Each faster than the last. But not a single one landed. This is getting ridiculous. She muttered. Riz let out an exaggerated sigh. I already told you I'm not on either side. So, could you stop trying to kill me? And this time he threw a punch of his own. Mai stood her ground, raising her arm to block. The impact was real. A split second later Mai's body blasted backward, her back smashing through a concrete wall several meters away. A cloud of dust erupted from the impact. Confirmed. Mai muttered, standing up and dusting herself off. She wasn't badly hurt. But that simple punch was far heavier than expected. Meanwhile Atsushi Kusakabe appeared behind Ro, sword drawn. New shadow style, quick draw. He channeled his cursed energy into the blade, slashing at lightning-fast speeds, but the sword phased straight through Riz's body. Kusakabe's instincts screamed at him. He immediately jumped back, switching to a defensive stance. Miss Mai, are you alright? Not bad. Mai smirked. I think I understand his technique now. Her gaze locked onto Ro. He makes his body intangible at will, making most attacks useless. But the moment he throws a punch, he has to turn solid. Kusakabe's eyes narrowed. I see. That makes things a little easier. Riz chuckled. Underestimating me, Kusakabe? That's gonna be a problem. Mai cracked her neck. Let's test it out, then. She and Kusakabe moved at the same time, one attacking, the other parrying. Kusakabe's blade slashed forward straight through Riz's intangible body. Riz countered with a punch, targeting Kusakabe's stomach. Mai seized the opening, swinging her axe at full force. But instead of solidifying to punch, Riz's fist remained intangible, yet somehow Kusakabe was still sent flying backward. Mai's axe missed entirely. Her eyes narrowed. Wait a minute, she barely had time to process before Riz effortlessly slipped past her guard and swung his leg up for a devastating kick. But clap. A loud applause echoed through the battlefield. And in an instant Riz vanished from his spot. Appearing right in front of a wall of muscle. Oi. This is getting interesting. Owie Todo. His massive fist rocketed forward, colliding with Riz's kick midair. Boom. The resulting shockwave shattered the pavement beneath them. Cursed energy flared violently, sending winds whipping in every direction. For a moment the two fighters were locked in place, neither one budging. Then Riz's cursed energy spiked even further. His right leg twisted and with a burst of force, he launched Todo like a cannonball straight toward Kusakabe. TCH. Kusakabe barely had time to react, but Todo boogie-woogie. Clap. Their positions swapped instantly. Kusakabe and Mai were now far away, and in their place a flock of crows, enhanced with cursed energy, rushed toward Ro. Boom. A violent explosion erupted, the ground shattering under the impact. For a brief moment, silence fell. But as the dust cleared, Riz stood unharmed, his expression unreadable. Mai narrowed her eyes. That technique. Not even Gojo Satoru could brush it off so easily. She exhaled slowly. What an annoying opponent. Kusakabe clenched his sword. So that's the guy Gito was talking about. Todo cracked his knuckles, grinning. Alright. Now I'm excited. Ru? He just grinned back. I gotta say, this is way more fun than I expected. And with that the real fight began. Chapter 52, The Siege. As the dust settled, Ru emerged from the shattered ground, casually brushing debris from his shoulder. His gaze flickered toward Aoi Todo, the sudden new arrival. More and more people, huh? A whirlpool spun into existence in his right eye, and in an instant, Riz's figure vanished. Behind. The shift in his position sent Kusakabe, Atsushi and the others into high alert. Mai, always relying on her crows for battlefield awareness, immediately pointed backward. Riz had reappeared farther down the road, standing in the middle of an open, empty street. Ignoring the others for now, he assessed the battlefield. Just as expected. The cursed spirits and Gito's forces were already showing signs of retreat. Against high-level Jujutsu sorcerers, low-grade cursed spirits, no matter their numbers, were only meant to be exorcised. Even with overwhelming quantity, they were up against the elite of the Jujutsu world. Not to mention in the original timeline, there had been a slight chance of victory. But with Gito absent and Ri having devoured so many first-grade curse spirits, the odds were likely zero. Natsukawa. A familiar voice called from above. Looking up, he spotted Nanako and Mimiko, still monitoring the battlefield from their pelican shikigami. "Why the hell are you just showing up now?" Nanako yelled. "Gito's entire plan relied on you not being late," Mimiko added. Ri sighed. The retreat was happening faster than expected, and the cultists from Gito's faction weren't thrilled about it. However, the moment the surrounding curse users saw Ri standing there, their fighting spirit surged back. His presence alone changed the momentum. "Really now? They act like I actually care about their cause." Ri let out a small laugh. "I'm just an individualist. I go where the rewards take me." A few meters behind him, Mai, Kusuke Batsushi, and Todo Aoi formed a triangular formation, maintaining equal distance. Kusuke spoke first, his tone neutral but laced with intent. "If it's just about money, how much would it cost to make you walk away?" Ri actually considered it for a second, tapping his chin. "Give me a couple of special-grade curse spirits and we'll talk." Kusuke sighed. "TCH. Thought so." At his side, Mai let out a small chuckle. "That's quite the demand, considering a special-grade curse spirit is worth at least 1 billion yen. And that's if it can even be caught." The absurd value seemed to amuse her more than concern her. But then her blue eyes sharpened, her grip on her axe tightening slightly. "Regardless of how long your intangibility lasts, you should know the situation on the battlefield. If you keep dragging this out, you might walk away with nothing." Ri met her gaze. "I appreciate the concern, Mai. I'll buy you tea sometime." His grin widened. "But if I can shift the tide of battle alone, then I won't be walking away empty-handed." The Mangekyo Sharingan in Ri's eyes flickered and the air itself grew heavy. Boom. Boom. A crushing wave of cursed energy radiated outward. A tangible force that pressed down on everyone near him. Even first-grade sorcerers like Kusuke, Mai, and Todo felt it bearing down on their chests. "TCH. This guy's ridiculous." Kusuke muttered, beads of sweat forming. Todo, on the other hand, let out a booming laugh. "If you fear a stronger opponent, then you are no true man." Without hesitation, he launched forward, muscles coiling like a spring-loaded cannon. A fist, backed by monstrous strength, tore through the air toward Ri's face. At the last moment Ri raised his arm to block it. Todo's eyes gleamed. "You stopped hiding behind that trick? I wouldn't want to miss out on the fun." Black flash. Boom. Todo's fist detonated with compressed cursed energy, the shockwave rippling outward. But Ri's own black flash ignited at the same moment, meeting Todo's head-on. The impact created a violent burst of air, sending dust and debris flying. And then they traded blows at speeds nearly imperceptible to the human eye. Fist clashing against fist, the air cracking like a thunderstorm around them. Todo grinned. Now this is a real fight. But despite their exchanges, Todo was being pushed back. Ri's blows weren't just fast, they were getting faster. His movements sharpened, as if his Sharingan were copying Todo's form in real time. And then Ri planted his foot forward, suddenly slamming his palm into the ground. Crack. The entire street fractured apart, shockwaves blasting outward. Todo, Kusuke, and Mai were all caught in the impact, momentarily thrown off balance. Ri seized the opening black flash. A devastating punch rocketed toward Todo's chest. Boom. At the last second, boogie-woogie. Clap. Their positions instantly switched. Todo disappeared and in his place Nanami Kento stood, sword mid-swing. Ratio technique, collapse. His blade was already in motion. But just before it connected, a faint blue glow shimmered around Ro. The blade halted mid-air, as if an invisible force had stopped it. Nanami's expression darkened. "TCH. What is this?" He stepped back and only then did he see it. A skeletal frame, wreathed in cursed energy, forming around Ri's body. "This isn't a shield." Nanami realized, eyes narrowing. "This is a manifestation of cursed energy itself." Mai, also regaining her stance, cursed under her breath. "What a pain in the ass." Kusuke, still catching his breath, tightened his grip on his sword. So this is the guy Gito was talking about. Todo, meanwhile, grinned even wider. "I like you even more now, Ri." Ri cracked his knuckles. "Glad to hear it, Todo." Then his Mangekyo Sharingan spun. And in an instant Aoi Todo's body froze. His surroundings shifted. The city of Shinjuku melted away, replaced by a vast, blood-red moonlit wasteland. What the hell? A domain expansion? But not exactly. Ri's voice echoed through the landscape. Todo turned and standing before him was not Ro, but his mentor, Yuki Tsukumo. Todo's eyes widened in shock. "Sensei?" And just like that, the Tsukimi had begun. Chapter 53, Victory is Mine, Sensei. Todo Aoi's eyes widened in shock. But he quickly realized this was not real. Damn it. This is that guy's technique. He gritted his teeth, immediately throwing a punch at the figure of Yuki Tsukumo standing before him. However, Yuki dodged effortlessly, her movements eerily familiar. And then boom. Todo felt a crushing impact against his abdomen, his breath forcibly expelled from his lungs. It's the same Star Rage technique as Sensei. Even with his body reinforced by cursed energy, the sheer force sent him flying dozens of meters backward. Ordinarily, a hit like that would leave him writhing in pain, but oddly enough, his body felt no damage. It was only his mind that suffered. What the hell is going on? Todo forced himself to his feet, his guard raised, but the moment he looked forward, his heart nearly stopped. The single figure of Yuki Tsukumo had multiplied. Not 2. Not 10. But 100. What the hell? A distorted voice echoed through the void, seemingly coming from every direction at once. This is my world. Everything within it bends to my will. Todo's breath caught in his throat. Tsukimi. A technique so overwhelming that even his reinforced mind was starting to crack. And the worst part? He couldn't fight back. For hours, no, days, he was beaten again and again by the illusions. Each impact felt real. Each strike etched deeper into his psyche. Until his spirit finally broke. Back to reality in the real world, only a single second had passed. Todo Aoi, who had been standing strong just moments ago, suddenly collapsed to his knees. His whole body trembled. Eyes vacant. A look of pure horror spread across his face. Todo? Kusuke Batsushi and the others rushed forward, but stay back. Todo's voice, usually booming with confidence, was now weak and fragile. With the last ounce of strength left in him, he uttered a warning, that guy is a demon. Then he lost consciousness. The battlefield, Todo? What the hell happened? Panic rippled through the remaining sorcerers. Among them, Nanami Kendo remained composed, his analytical mind immediately piecing together the situation. Don't look into his eyes. The warning came just in time. Mai's black crows flew around her, serving as her extended vision to avoid direct eye contact. I see. So it's a visual-based technique. With Todo out of the fight, the cursed energy radiating from Ru intensified even further. The skeletal structure that once covered his body expanded, towering over the battlefield. The earth trembled beneath its sheer presence. No way. Is he a curse user? Kusuke clenched his fists. No. Nanami's eyes narrowed. This isn't a curse spirit. The skeletal frame grew thicker. Muscles wrapped around the bones. Then a wave of blue cursed energy engulfed its entire body, forming armor around the titan-like figure. A giant warrior, fully armored, stood in his place. And then roar. A deafening howl shook the battlefield. Every sorcerer present felt it down to their very core. Fear. Overwhelming, primal fear. What the hell is that? That's not a technique. That's a monster. High above, the black beret curse user, still locked in battle with Gojo Satoru, smirked. Looks like we won this time, Gojo Satoru. Gojo, who had been watching the battlefield while holding off his opponent, clicked his tongue. That guy. He's the one Gito was talking about? With one hand, Gojo yanked the black rope towards him, dragging his opponent off balance. TCH. Before the curse user could react, Gojo's right fist coated in condensed cursed energy slammed into his stomach. Boom. The impact sent him crashing through a building, disappearing into the rubble. Gojo didn't even look back. His attention was now fully locked onto Ro. Down below, Mai made her decision. She lowered her weapon. Then she turned and walked away. Mai, where are you going? A second-grade sorcerer, Kamonori Toshi, shouted in disbelief. Are you seriously abandoning the fight? Mai didn't even glance back. If you were smart, you'd be running too. Monsters of that level aren't our problem anymore. Kusuke cursed under his breath. Damn it. I hate when she's right. Still he held his ground. Nanami, can you find a weak point? Nanami studied the giant warrior, his cursed technique calculating for any possible ratio weaknesses. Seconds passed. And then he sighed. I can't. Kusuke felt a chill run down his spine. Wait. You mean? There are no weaknesses. A heavy silence fell over the battlefield. Then we force it. The remaining Kyoto sorcerers prepared their attacks. Kamonori Toshi spread his blood across the battlefield, preparing for red blood manipulation. I'll go first. With a sharp motion, Noritoshi's blood turned into a deadly projectile, piercing straight towards Suzunu's head. But the blood splattered harmlessly against the armor. It didn't even scratch it. Impossible. A smirk tugged at his lips. Is that all? With a single motion, Suzunu unsheathed its sword. Then swoosh. A massive blade of cursed energy tore through the battlefield, splitting the ground apart. "It's coming." The conjurers barely had time to react, but then a hand appeared in front of the attack. With a simple gesture, the massive energy wave came to a complete stop. The battlefield fell silent. And then a single voice broke through the tension. "Yo, Ryu. I think you forgot who the strongest really is." Standing in front of the obliterated battlefield was Gojo Satoru. With a smile that didn't reach his eyes, he flicked the energy aside like dust off his jacket. "Principal, you should get everyone out of here." Masamaki Yaga hesitated. "Gojo, are you this guy's not your problem?" Gojo cracked his knuckles. "He's mine." The battlefield emptied. Everyone ran. Only two figures remained. Gojo Satoru. And Ryu. "I don't know where you came from. But if Kido thought you could stop me, then..." A deadly grin spread across Gojo's face. "Too bad for you." Ryu smirked. "You talk like you've already won." Gojo's 6 eyes glowed. "I will win." The battle began. Chapter 54, Gojo shocked, Ryu rocked. This was the first time Ryu had ever stood face to face with Gojo Satoru, the strongest sorcerer of the modern era. He had only ever seen him in manga, anime, and news reports. Now, here he was. In person. But strangely, he didn't feel as overwhelming as Ryu had imagined. Of course, there was no doubt Gojo was the most capable sorcerer here. But that didn't mean he was invincible. Boom. Boom. The cursed energy flared around them, its sheer intensity causing the very air to shudder. Gojo's figure blurred, moving with impossible speed. Then hollow purple. Gojo's signature move ignited between his fingertips a concentrated sphere of repelling and attracting cursed energy, forming a miniature singularity. The moment he unleashed it, boom. A shockwave of devastation tore through the battlefield. Buildings shattered, the ground split apart, and a deep crater formed beneath Ryu's towering Susanoo. And yet not bad. Ryu barely flinched. His monstrous armored titan took the hit head-on, its immense durability absorbing the impact. Susanoo staggered back, its feet grinding against the cracked earth, but that was it. That was all Gojo's strongest reversal technique could do. The distant onlookers, the Jujutsu high sorcerers, all stared in horror. No way. That was a direct hit from hollow purple. And all it did was make him take a step back? Even Gojo himself was momentarily frozen. It was his strongest offensive technique, yet it barely made a dent. Gojo tilted his head. Huh. That's a first. I don't think I've ever fought a turtle shell as thick as yours before. Ryu smirked. Is that so? Then what about this? His eyes flashed, and Amaterasu erupted. The black flames of eternal destruction ignited out of thin air, instantly engulfing Gojo's entire form. Flames that would never cease until they burned their target to nothing. Yet no. Gojo casually waved his hand. The flames halted an invisible barrier keeping them at bay. His infinity rendered them completely useless. Okay, let's be real. Gojo sighed, rubbing the back of his head. You know this won't work on me. I know this won't work on me. So why bother? Ryu wasn't surprised. He knew Amaterasu alone wouldn't break Gojo's infinity. But this was never about defeating him with fire. You're right, Gojo. But it wasn't meant to kill you. It was just a distraction. Gojo blinked and then, suddenly space twisted. Huh? In that instant, before he could react, a violent distortion in space erupted beside Gojo's right arm. And then slash. His entire arm was severed. Blood splattered. The limb that had been connected to him just moments ago now fell to the ground. Gojo's eyes widened. For the first time in years, an actual expression of shock spread across his face. The pain, the disbelief. Ryu stood there, his Mangekyo Sharingan gleaming with power. A distorted vortex still swirled at his fingertips, evidence of the Kamui technique that had just bypassed infinity. Looks like your technique isn't as invincible as you thought, huh? Gojo gritted his teeth. Damn. That's new. With a surge of reversed cursed energy, his severed arm instantly regenerated. The moment it fully reformed, he looked down at his hands. And then he grinned. Oh man. It's been so long since I actually felt threatened. His excitement surged. I'm really starting to like you, Ryu. Without hesitation, Gojo soared into the sky, hundreds of meters above the battlefield. TCH. This bastard's really going all out. Ryu smirked. He could see it happening. The telltale hand seals. The cursed energy distortion. Here it comes. The technique Gojo had only ever used a handful of times in the history of Jujutsu sorcery. Hollow purple, maximum output. The sky itself warped as a massive black sphere of pure destructive energy formed between Gojo's hands. This wasn't just an attack. It was annihilation incarnate. That thing's dangerous. Ryu knew he had plenty of ways to counter it. He could phase through it. He could teleport away. He could even transfer it into another dimension. But that would be boring. No, this called for something bigger. Let's go all out, then. The ground cracked beneath him. Cursed energy howled like a storm. And then boom! A new form took shape. A fully armored, colossal Susanoo, now standing nearly 200 meters tall. Its wings spread wide, its blade gleaming under the shattered moonlight. The ultimate warrior had taken the field. The sorcerers who had retreated watched in horror. What? What the hell is that? Is this even Jujutsu anymore? This has to be a goddamn kaiju battle. Even my, who had escaped earlier, was sweating bullets. Thank God I ran. Gojo hurled the hollow purple sphere straight at Ru. A beam of destruction streaking across the sky. Ru's Susanoo raised its sword and swung down. The moment they collided, reality itself cracked. A cataclysmic explosion erupted, engulfing the battlefield in blinding white light. As the dust settled, Gojo landed back on the ground. His infinity flickered, his clothes torn, his body covered in burns. Across from him, Ru stood tall, his Susanoo finally dispersing. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then hey. You're pretty damn strong. Gojo wiped blood from his lip, chuckling. But you're still not quite there yet. Ru smirked, cracking his neck. TCH. I was just getting started. Gojo's smile widened. Too bad, then. Because next time. I won't hold back. Chapter 55, Post-War Gojo Satoru didn't stop for a second. Restoring his cursed energy output, he soared through the sky, heading straight back to Jujutsu High. Meanwhile, Ru had already left the battlefield and contacted Gito Suguru. I sensed a sudden drop in your cursed energy. Ru said casually. So? How'd it go? A brief silence. I failed. Suguru's voice was calm, eerily so. Ru raised an eyebrow. Oh? Didn't expect Okatsuyuta to be such a sentimental guy. He used himself as a sacrifice to break Rika's binding. Suguru sighed, a rare moment of frustration. But even so. His voice darkened. It was enough power to change the world. I won't stop here. Ru could hear the growing madness in his tone. He simply shrugged. I did my part. Held off Gojo long enough for you to get away. And I appreciate it. Suguru said with a low chuckle. Without you, I would have walked right into a trap. Well. Ru smirked, you paid me well. Consider it a fair trade. Then, as if just an afterthought by the way. I think we have a new strongest. Suguru's eyes widened. For the first time, he was speechless. Using blue attraction, Gojo blitzed from Shinjuku to Jujutsu High within minutes. Hovering above the school's barrier, he expanded his 6 eyes across the battlefield. His pupils narrowed. The traces of cursed energy lingering in the air told him everything. Suguru. Lost. But Yuta won. Relief settled into his chest. Suguru had escaped, but at least none of his students had died. Gojo exhaled, a rare smile tugging at his lips. Guess the brat pulled through. Pulling down his blindfold, he descended toward his students. But before he could reach them, BZZT. BZZT. His phone buzzed aggressively. Rolling his eyes, he answered. Yeah, principal? Get your ass back here now. Yaga's voice was firm, yet exasperated. Relax, relax. I'm already here. Gojo said lazily. Everyone's alive. Even Yuta. Yaga sighed heavily from the other end. Good. At least there's that. Then, in a much sharper tone, now get back. We need to talk about the complete disaster you caused. Gojo grimaced. It wasn't just me, don't even try to pin this on someone else. Gojo winced, holding the phone away from his ear. Alright. Geez, no need to yell. He muttered. Hanging up, he sighed. Ugh. The higher-ups are gonna be a pain in the ass after this. Still, there was one last thing to do before dealing with all that. First, let's undo Rika's curse. He pocketed his phone and headed straight for Yuta. Far beyond Jujutsu High, atop a distant mountain ridge, a lone figure stood. He held binoculars to his eyes, silently observing the ruins of the battlefield. But unlike a mere spectator, his head bore deep surgical scars, as if his skull had been tampered with. Watching, he let out a disappointed sigh and shook his head. Such a shame. He muttered. It didn't go exactly as I predicted. But then, his lips curled into a small smirk. Still, this should push Suguru further down his path. He turned, disappearing into the darkness. With one more special grade joining the stage. Things are about to get very interesting. Ru had long since left the battlefield. The moment he stepped through his front door, warm lights greeted him. And so did welcome back. Kasumijoka Utaha stood at the entrance, arms crossed, watching him carefully. Behind her, Miro Yumiko and Yatsuya Maiko sat on the couch, both looking relieved. He could feel it. Their worry. Their relief. And then without another word, Utaha stepped forward and hugged him. Her arms tightened around him for just a second before she pulled away. "You're not hurt, are you?" Ri grinned. "Nope. Actually. I might be even stronger than I thought." To prove it, he held out his arms. "Well? No point stopping at one. Come here, you two." Yumeko and Maiko exchanged glances then, without hesitation, they both hugged him too. After a few seconds, returned to the only one not moving. Yurikawa Hana. She was stiff, awkwardly avoiding his gaze. Riz smirked. "What about you, Hana?" I'm good," she stammered, waving her hands. "Welcome back, Ryo." Maiko tensed slightly, sneaking a glance at Yurikawa. There was something there. A shift. But now wasn't the time to address it. Instead, Riz simply flopped onto the couch, stretching out with a satisfied sigh. "You guys seem to have a lot of questions." "No need to say it." Yumeko huffed, shoving her phone in his face. "Have you seen the internet?" The aftermath hits the web. Ri glanced at the screen. Sure enough, the entire internet was exploding. One headline stood out: "Mysterious white light in Shinjuku, what is the government hiding?" Curious, Ri tapped a short video attached to the post. The footage was grainy, taken from the middle of a street. The camera focused on the distant skyline and then a brilliant flash of light. A shockwave erupted. Then a deafening roar. The camera shook violently, people screaming in terror. The video cut off. Beneath it, the comments flooded in. Was that a nuke? What the fuck happened in Shinjuku? Terrorist attack on Christmas Eve? The government is covering something up, Ri chuckled. If only they could see what really happened. Utaha sighed, sitting beside him. What did happen, exactly? Ri smirked, thinking back. The battle. The power. The sheer thrill of standing atop his completed Susanoo. Nothing much. Just a little fun. Chapter 56, Hana Yurikawa doesn't mind Kasamijoka. Utaha settled beside Ru, a playful glint in her burgundy eyes. She leaned in, casually wrapping an arm around his neck. Her gaze flickered toward Miro Yumeko, who was already glaring at her, before she smirked and said, "All right, spill. Tell us everything." With both of them practically draped over him, Riz simply held one in each arm, reclining comfortably into the couch. Across from them, Yurikawa Hana sat stiffly on the other sofa, hands covering her face, trying to process everything. At first, she had simply been amused, watching Yumeko and Utaha compete for Riz's attention in the club. But now they weren't just competing. They were sharing. Even Maiko, who had always been reserved, had taken the initiative to hug Ri earlier. Yurikawa blinked rapidly. So, I was wrong this whole time? They're not fighting over him. They're sharing him? Her thoughts swirled chaotically. The idea of a real-life harem, it felt like something straight out of a light novel. And yet, here it was, happening right in front of her. The room settled into expectant silence, all eyes locked on Ro. Utaha, resting against his chest, tilted her head. "You didn't seem so eager to talk earlier. What changed?" Ri chuckled. "Oh, I was just enjoying how scared you all looked before. But now..." His eyes gleamed mischievously. "Now I'm in the mood. TCH, you're such a tease." Utaha rolled her eyes, but the slight pink in her cheeks betrayed her amusement. "I want to know too." Yumeko piped up. Even if fighting wasn't her thing, the fact that Ri had been at the center of it all made her curious. The same went for Maiko and Yurikawa Hana, who had already witnessed paranormal things before. "All right," Ri finally said. "Look into my eyes." Their gazes met his. And in the next second their consciousnesses shifted. The memory played like a cinematic masterpiece. Sakura Jimimai. The encounter with curse users. The clash against multiple Jujutsu sorcerers. The towering, armored Susanoo standing over the battlefield, its sword cleaving through the city. A godlike view from above, seeing the world beneath his feet. The moment the internet video had captured that terrifying white flash. The experience was so vivid, so real, that when the memory finally ended, it took a second for the girls to reorient themselves. As if they had just been thrust out of an intense action film. And the protagonist of that film was Ro. The room was silent until Kasamijoka Utaha suddenly leaned in, wrapped an arm around Ri's neck and kissed him. Hard. MMPH. Ri froze for a second, then quickly reciprocated. The sudden aggression caught everyone off guard. "Hey." Yumeko yanked on Ri's arm, forcing them apart. She scowled at Utaha. "You always do this. You sneak in when I least expect it." Utaha simply licked the corner of her lips, utterly unapologetic. "Not my fault," she said smoothly. "Seeing Ri like that, how could I resist?" Her tone was shameless, but her cheeks were flushed. Yumeko clicked her tongue. "Fine. You win this round." Utaha smirked, But the battle was far from over. Maiko, meanwhile, had been watching with a complicated expression. She wanted to follow Utaha's lead. But with Yurikawa Hana sitting right there, she hesitated. Sensing her friend's internal struggle, Maiko nudged Hana's arm. "Hana, are you okay?" "Ah." Yurikawa snapped out of her daze. I was just thinking." Her hands clutched at the fabric of her sleeves. "It felt like I was watching a superhero movie," she muttered. Then, eyes sparkling, she blurted out, "Rikun, your giant was so cool. It could fly. And the sword slashes, oh my god, they were amazing." Maiko sighed, rubbing her temples. "You're way too excited, Hana." "But it was so cool." Hana threw her arms into the air dramatically. Maiko simply smiled fondly. Hana had come a long way from the timid girl she used to be. Even so, when Maiko mentioned how many people could have died if civilians had still been in Shinjuku, Hana froze. "Oh. Right. That wasn't just some movie, was it?" Reality sank in. She shivered. But then, she glanced at Ryu, and her fear melted into gratitude. "Because he was here. That's why the government covers these things up," Ryu explained. "They don't want widespread panic. They keep jujutsu hidden so society doesn't collapse under fear." Yumiko exhaled. "So what happens next?" Ryu smirked. "No idea. But I'm curious to see how they'll cover this one up." The girls didn't ask why he fought. They didn't ask whose side he was on. They didn't ask about the collateral damage. They trusted him. And that was enough. By 9 p.m., Maiko and Hana decided to head home. As they walked, Hana munched on some snacks Ryu had given her, happily swinging her bag. But Maiko had something on her mind. Finally, she turned to Hana. "Hana. Do you have something you want to ask me?" "Huh?" Hana blinked. "Oh. You mean about you and Ryu?" Maiko's lips twitched. "You were pretending not to care, huh?" Hana grinned sheepishly. "So, are you really his girlfriend now?" Maiko hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah. And? Utaha-senpai and Yumiko-san?" "Yes. And you're all okay with it?" Maiko sighed, bracing herself. "It's a bit complicated, but I don't mind either." Maiko froze mid-step. She turned, eyes wide. "What?" Hana's face was bright red, but she spoke firmly. "I said I don't mind." She fidgeted, but then whispered, "If everyone else is okay with it, then I wouldn't mind either." Maiko's jaw dropped. "You? Don't look at me like that." Hana hid her face in her hands. Maiko just stood there, completely floored. "Oh god. I need to warn Yumiko and Utaha." Meanwhile, back at his house, Utaha and Yumiko had both refused to leave. "All right, Ryu." Utaha purred. "Who do you want to spend the night with?" Yumiko crossed her arms. "Yeah, pick one." Ryu just grinned lazily. "Why pick?" He pulled both of them down onto the couch. "It's Christmas Eve. Let's all enjoy it together." Chapter 57, Aftermath of the Night Parade of 100 Demons. Shinjuku, Tokyo. With the Night Parade of 100 Demons concluded, Jujutsu sorcerers had begun the grueling process of damage control. It wasn't just about repairing shattered buildings, the remnants of cursed spirits also had to be disposed of before they could contaminate the area. This was no small incident. The entire Shinjuku district had been devastated by the clash between sorcerers and curse users. The sheer scale of destruction forced even the injured sorcerers to help, their wounds barely treated by Iri Shoko's reversal technique before being sent back to work. Nanami Kento, covered in dust, let out a long sigh. What a nightmare of a day. The backbreaking overtime reminded him too much of his corporate past, a life he had tried to escape. Standing nearby, Atsuya Kusuke patted Nanami's shoulder. Then, without a word, he pointed toward Gojo Satoru, who was floating midair, using curse technique, blew to lift and replace massive chunks of concrete. Nanami sighed again. Yeah. I get it. At least I'm not that guy." After several exhausting hours, they had finally patched up the most critical areas. As soon as the last repairs were complete, Gojo collapsed into a chair in the makeshift meeting room. "This is so stupid," he groaned, arms dangling over the chair's armrests. "Why even bother fixing the roads when every damn building in a 1,000-meter radius got flattened?" Masami Kiyaga, standing with his arms crossed, shot him a stern look. "We do our part. The higher-ups will handle the rest." "Oh? You mean they'll cover it up, right?" Gojo smirked, watching as Yaga's forehead twitched in irritation. "You were part of the destruction too, you know. PFFT. Like I'm the only one," Gojo said with a mocking shrug. Yaga clenched his fists. But, knowing that Gojo's limitless technique meant he couldn't punch him, he simply gritted his teeth and sighed. "Forget it. We have bigger things to discuss." Moments later, The official meeting began. Inside the conference room, those who had personally fought Umai, Atsuya Kusakabe, and Nanami Kento took their seats. On the other side sat Yaga Masamaki, Gakuganji Yoshinobu, Iri Shoko, and several elders of the three major families. Gojo scanned the room. "Hey. Where's Todo?" Iri Shoko took a slow drag from her cigarette, exhaled, and shook her head. "Still unconscious. Even with reversal techniques, he needs time to recover." "TCH. That bad, huh?" Atsuya Kusakabe shuddered. "I don't even know what that guy did. All I know is, once he locked eyes with him, it was over." A heavy silence filled the room. Finally, Yaga turned toward Gojo. "So? What's your assessment?" Everyone already knew who they were talking about. Even though there were no official records on Ru, everyone at this table had seen his power firsthand. Gojo leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. "He's strong." Simple words, but the weight behind them was immense. The entire room stiffened. Even Iri Shoko, normally calm, was so shocked that her cigarette slipped from her fingers. Wait. Yaga's expression darkened. "You? Calling someone else strong?" Gojo simply grinned. "Yeah. Strong enough that even without his Susanoo, he could probably still beat me." The shock in the room intensified. Gojo Satoru, the man who always claimed to be the strongest, was admitting this. "No way." Nanami muttered under his breath. "You're joking, right?" Iri Shoko asked, half laughing. "Do I look like I'm joking?" Gojo leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. His 6 eyes glowed faintly. "For the first time in years, I met someone who made me feel like I wasn't at the top." A slow, dangerous smile crept across his lips. "And honestly, I've never been more excited." Gakuganji Yoshinobu, still visibly tense, finally spoke. "Are you saying you have no means to defeat him?" Gojo scratched his head. "It's not that simple. Let me break it down." He raised 3 fingers. First, all of his techniques are activated through his eyes. Second, he used 3 confirmed abilities in our fight. One was those black flames that won't die out until their target burns completely. Another was his Susanoo, a spell-powered giant with both unbelievable offense and defense. And the third, he paused before raising a 4th finger. "Is that ridiculous space manipulation technique?" My, who had been leaning back with arms crossed, finally spoke. "That one was the worst." She tapped the table impatiently. "He can literally phase into another space, making himself untouchable. Every attack we threw at him went right through." Gakuganji scowled deeply. "Then how do we counter it?" A moment of silence. Gojo sighed, rubbing his temples. "If we amplify my cursed technique with reinforcement spells, we might break through his Susanoo's defenses. But if he just phases out, it's useless. We need someone who can neutralize spatial techniques." At that moment a deep voice cut through the room. "There is someone." All eyes turned toward Zenon Nabito, head of the Zenon clan. He tapped his finger against the table, voice low and dangerous. "If we're dealing with space-based abilities, then the answer lies with someone who can disrupt space itself." The entire room fell silent. For a moment, no one spoke until Gojo Satoru, grinning like a madman, said, "Oh? Now this is getting interesting." Chapter 58, My, contact that monster. I need more money. Jujutsu headquarters, the aftermath meeting. The tension in the conference room was thick. Gojo Satoru, sitting with his legs propped up on the table, suddenly clapped his hands together. All right. I've got it. Let's just throw Kinji Hikari in the ring. If we get him to use domain expansion, he can tank damage infinitely like a human punching bag." An unnamed sorcerer sighed. "You're such an asshole, Gojo." The voice of an elder cleared the room. "Enough." Zenon Nabito's sharp gaze landed on them. "I was referring to another candidate." A beat of silence. Everyone immediately understood who he was talking about. Fushiguro Megumi. The first-year student who had yet to officially enroll at Jujutsu High. "Some of you may not know this," Nabito continued, "but that boy carries the Zenon clan's blood. More importantly, he has inherited our family's most powerful technique." His voice grew heavy with authority. 10 Shadows technique. The room went silent. Despite being public knowledge among high-level sorcerers, this reminder carried weight. "The reason this technique is the strongest in Zenon history," Nabito continued, "is because of the 10 Shadows' ultimate trump card Meiharuga." Boom. The moment the name dropped, Gakuganji Yoshinobu stood up in shock. Meiharuga? Gojo, who had been casually twirling his sunglasses, finally perked up with a smirk. "Ooh? So we're bringing up that guy now?" Nanami Kendo and Atsuya Kusakabe exchanged glances. "Who the hell is Meiharuga?" Nanami finally asked. Nabito folded his arms. "Meiharuga is the most powerful Shikigami within the 10 Shadows technique. A force of pure destruction, one that no previous user has ever been able to tame. To put it simply, he added grimly, Mayhariga possesses the ability to adapt to anything, including space warping techniques. The weight of his words sank into everyone's minds. Wait. An unnamed sorcerer waved his hand. Are you saying we're betting on Fushiguro to control something that every past user has failed to tame? That is correct. Nobito said coldly. Bullshit. Gojo's voice cut through the room. His 6 eyes locked onto Nobito. Fushiguro is my student. He's already getting stronger under my guidance. If he stays at Jujutsu High, he'll surpass any half-assed training your Zenin clan could offer. The room felt like it had dropped a few degrees. Nobito's eyes narrowed. Are you telling me you'll take responsibility for his growth? TCH. You don't get it. Gojo stretched, yawning dramatically. I'm saying he's already mine. So drop the subject. For a brief moment Zenin, Nobito and Gojo Satoru stared each other down. It was a clash of generations. But before the tension could snap, Gakaganji slammed the table. This is not just about Fushiguro. His voice boomed, snapping everyone's attention back. That boy isn't the issue. The real problem is the man currently aligned with Suguru Gito. Do you intend to just stand back and watch humanity end? Gojo grinned. End of humanity? Oh, come on. You guys still don't get it, huh? He leaned forward, pointing at Gakaganji. I already said it. If that guy was actually serious, we'd all be dead. The room fell silent. Even Mai, who had been quietly leaning against the wall, finally uncrossed her arms. That's true. She admitted. He was just toying with us. Atsuya Kusuke nodded. And according to him, he was only there because he took a job from Gito. Gojo's interest peaked. Oh? So, what was the payment? A special grade cursed spirit. Kusuke answered. The entire room stiffened. A curse? The idea of wanting a cursed spirit, something that sorcerers were trained to eliminate, was completely unnatural. So that means... Mai's sharp mind put the pieces together instantly. He might be able to absorb them. Gojo snapped his fingers. Exactly. No wonder I thought Gito wasn't using as many cursed spirits as I expected. He probably gave away a bunch to that guy. The implications rippled through the room. If that's true, Yaga muttered, then that would explain his abnormal strength at such a young age. More importantly, Iri Shoko tapped her cigarette. If he keeps accepting Gito's jobs, we'll keep running into him as an enemy. TCH. The higher-ups will try to deal with this soon. Gojo rolled his eyes. And we all know how that'll go. Actually, Mai spoke up, there is one way to solve this without a full confrontation. Oh? Gojo grinned. We contact him directly. The room immediately went silent. Then everyone looked away. Like students avoiding eye contact when the teacher asked for a volunteer. Well, I'm obviously out. Gojo said, stretching. Masamaki Yaga sighed heavily. Someone needs to make contact with him. Atsuya Kusuke suddenly perked up. Oh, right. I almost forgot he actually mentioned wanting to have tea with Mai. Mai's brows twitched. She turned her head slowly toward Kusuke. Excuse me? Yep. Kusuke nodded innocently. He said, if I ever get the chance, I'd love to have tea with Mai. Mai stared. Then, with perfect composure, she stood up. Absolutely not. Mai. Yaga's voice grew stern, you're the best choice. No. She crossed her arms. That guy is even more of a monster than Gojo. You think I'm volunteering for free? She smirked, eyes gleaming. If you want me to contact him, then you'd better pay me more. Chapter 59, Indelible Black History. Monday morning, the start of a new week. Mondays were usually annoying. But today? Today was a good day. Maybe it was the crisp winter air. Maybe it was the lingering satisfaction from Christmas Eve. Or maybe it was the triumph of personal accomplishments. Lying in bed, Riz stretched lazily, his mind replaying the night of December 24th. Originally, he hadn't expected much from the evening. But he had underestimated the rivalry between two certain girls. Thanks to that, Christmas Eve had turned into something far more interesting than just a simple holiday. It wasn't just about advancing his own family affairs, though that certainly played a part. It was about setting a precedent for the future. A new era, both in life and in battle. Still, the only downside. Damn school. With a resigned sigh, Ri rolled out of bed, yawned, and started getting ready. The alarm had gone off a while ago. By normal standards, he was already late. But his right eye twisted into a black vortex, and the next second he was gone. From the solitude of his room, Ri vanished into Kamyui's dimensional space. A moment later, the space twisted open once again, depositing him into an empty alleyway near the school. Man, I love this ability. It had become second nature to warp like this, cutting down commute times, avoiding crowds, and just making life easier. But today felt different. There was a shift in the atmosphere. Riz stepped onto the bustling sidewalk, weaving through the flow of students. His phone buzzed in his hand. The news was still exploding about the events in Shinjuku. The government had attempted to cover up the destruction by labeling it as an evacuation drill. But no one was buying it. Less than 24 hours after the battle, Shinjuku was reopened to the public. And what did they see? A vast, empty wasteland. 10,000 meters of pure devastation. Buildings? Gone. Infrastructure? Obliterated. Landscapes? Rewritten. Riz scrolled through article after article, all capturing the impossible sight from different angles. Tokyo map altered overnight. What happened in Shinjuku? Government cover-up. Shinjuku's sudden white light sparks conspiracies, supernatural phenomena? Evidence of unknown forces in Tokyo. The comment sections were even worse. That was no lab explosion. What kind of explosion erases an entire city block? The government is testing some secret weapon. Wake up, people. This is some anime-level superpower bullshit. Somebody explain the white light. Riz smirked. Superpowers, huh? He pocketed his phone and headed toward the classroom. Yo, Natsukawa. A group of boys waved him over as he entered the classroom. Did you see the Shinjuku news? This is insane. Replayed dumb, shrugging. Wasn't it just a chain reaction from a lab explosion? One of the guys gawked at him. Dude, are you serious? What kind of lab explosion flattens a 10-kilometer radius with no debris? Yeah. And did you see the white light? That's not normal. It's gotta be superpowers. Riz snapped his fingers dramatically. Oh? Actually, I have superpowers too. For a moment, the room fell silent. Then I believe it. The girls who had been laughing at the guys earlier suddenly switched sides. Natsukawa's superpower is being insanely hot. And good at every sport. Sorry, Hayama, but Natsukawa wins. Riz smirked. Hayama, sitting nearby, sighed in defeat. I can't win against a protagonist. With a casual pat on the shoulders of his classmates, Riz took his seat, ignoring the ongoing banter. Right now, he was more interested in someone else's reaction. Yo, Yumiko. Sitting down, Riz turned to look at her. She was noticeably quiet this morning. After hearing his voice, Yumiko stiffened slightly, then responded without even looking at him. Morning. That confirmed it. She was still thinking about last night. Riz leaned in. Still overthinking it? No response. Come on, it was just the first time. It gets easier the more we do it. The hell it does. Yumiko whipped around, her face red. Riz smirked, amused. Oh? You sure weren't complaining at the time. I was tricked. It was because of her. Yumiko clenched her fists. Just the memory of last night made her want to crawl into a hole. Kasumijoka Utaha. That damn woman. Her shamelessness had gotten the better of Yumiko. She had gotten competitive, and in the heat of the moment, she had overstepped her limits. She had begged. She had cried out in surrender. And worst of all, Utaha had witnessed everything. She couldn't erase it. An indelible black mark on her personal history. TCH. That damn woman. Yumiko muttered under her breath. Riz chuckled, leaning back. You started it, though. Yumiko had no comeback. She turned away, sulking. Riz simply grinned, looking forward to how the club meeting would play out today. Speaking of which, he suddenly remembered. Oh, right. There was supposed to be an unexpected guest at the Exorcism Club today. Chapter 60, Sakurajima comes to visit. It wasn't even after school yet, let alone time for club activities. Yet, standing just outside the classroom door, Sakurajima had arrived. Dressed in her school uniform, her signature black thigh-high stockings accentuating her long legs, she casually stepped inside. Her presence was impossible to ignore, at least, for anyone who could actually see her. Despite class being in session, nobody reacted. The teacher continued writing on the board, chalk tapping rhythmically. Not a single classmate turned their head. It was as if she didn't exist. But as soon as Mai's gaze landed on him, her expression lit up. Ignoring everything else, she strode toward Ryu's desk without hesitation. Stopping in front of him, she spoke with confidence, I am here to see you, Natsukawa. There was no hesitation in her words. She had already learned his name and class before coming here. Clearly, she had done her research. Ryu glanced up from his desk. You're blocking my study time. Mai blinked, momentarily caught off guard. Then, with a smirk, she hopped up onto his desk, her long legs crossed, the fabric of her stockings stretching slightly as she got comfortable. She leaned in, eyes sharp and studying him closely. You really are different, huh? Ryu didn't deny it. Instead, He exhaled lazily and leaned back in his chair. I told you already our meeting spot was supposed to be the exorcism club. I couldn't wait. Mai admitted. I need answers now. Her tone was serious, filled with a desperation she hadn't even tried to hide. Then, as if remembering something, she gave an introduction that she had already done before, but this time, with a hint of teasing in it. My name is Mai Sakurajima. Sakurajima, like the island. Mai, as in. Well, me. Riz smirked slightly at her dry humor. So you're the mysterious Mai Sakurajima. That's me. Despite her usual cool demeanor, her frustration was evident. She had tried everything: public stunts, attention-seeking actions, but it seemed like only he could see her. For the first time in a long while, Mai felt acknowledged. Ru? A voice called out beside him. Miro Yumiko, sitting nearby, had noticed something was off. She turned, watching him with suspicion. Are you talking to yourself? Mai turned as well, observing Yumiko with curiosity. But, of course, Yumiko couldn't see her. Mai sighed, a hopeless expression crossing her face. Figures. Even though I'm right here, she doesn't notice me. For her, this was normal now, an invisible existence, unnoticed by everyone. But it still stung every time. Ryu chuckled. No, I'm not talking to myself. I'm talking to Mai Sakurajima. Huh? Yumiko blinked, then stared at the empty space next to Ryu. There's nothing there. Just to double check, she reached out, waving her hand in the air where Mai was supposedly standing. No sensation. No touch. Nothing. Are you messing with me? Yumiko asked, clearly unconvinced. Riz smirked. She's literally watching you right now. What? Yumiko immediately leaned back in her chair, feeling a strange sense of discomfort. Why is she looking at me? Mai quickly waved her hands. I wasn't staring. I just wanted to see if she was anything special. Relayed the message. Yumiko narrowed her eyes. So, what? Am I just some boring normie? Pretty much. Mai admitted bluntly. Ryu chuckled as he repeated it to Yumiko. The blonde girl scoffed, crossing her arms. Great. So, what's her deal? Another cursed spirit problem? Like Maiko and Hana? Mai tilted her head at the unfamiliar terms. Cursed spirit? Ryu nodded. Most likely, yeah. He turned to Mai, meeting her eyes. But before I get into details, let me explain what's happening to you first. Mai hesitated, glancing around. Here? She had been desperate for answers, but now she realized they were still in the middle of class. She could already picture the absurdity of it, her, sitting on some guy's desk, having a deep discussion about supernatural phenomena while their teacher continued the lesson in the background. Maybe not the best place. She muttered. Riz stood up, stretching. Then let's go to the club room. He turned to Yumiko. You coming? Hell no. Yumiko instantly refused. She didn't want to sit around listening to a conversation she couldn't even participate in. Suit yourself. With that, Riz headed toward the door, casually pushing it open. Mai followed closely behind and paused. Wait a minute. As she looked back at the classroom, she noticed something strange. Nobody reacted. Not the teacher. Not the students. Not even Yumiko. It was as if Riz was still sitting at his desk, quietly taking notes. Hold on, did you just make yourself invisible? Not quite. Riz said without stopping. I didn't erase my presence, I just altered everyone's perception. So, to them, you never left? Exactly. Mai was stunned. That is an insane ability. She quickly caught up, her previous concerns temporarily forgotten. Then you really can help me. Riz led Mai to the Exorcism Club's headquarters, effortlessly passing through the spell-protected doorway. Stepping inside, Mai immediately paused. What the hell? The place didn't look like a school club at all. Instead of the usual dull classroom setup, it was a cozy lounge, complete with plush sofas, warm lighting, and a completely different atmosphere from the rest of the school. When did this happen? It didn't look like this before. Riz smirked as he poured her a cup of tea. Perception manipulation. He answered simply. Mai slowly sat down, feeling the soft cushion beneath her. Her fingers pressed into the fabric, confirming it was real. That's really freaky. Riz took a seat across from her. Now, let's talk about you. Mai's grip on her teacup tightened slightly. She wasn't sure if it was from excitement or fear. So? What's wrong with me? Riz studied her for a moment. Then, with a smirk, he said your situation is pretty bad. Mai's fingers trembled slightly against the porcelain. A quiet, uncertain voice escaped her lips. You can't fix it? Riz exhaled dramatically, as if considering his words carefully. He leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand. Well, it's serious. But not impossible. Mai exhaled, part relief, part tension. At least you can see me. She gave a small, almost hopeful smile. For the first time in a while, she wasn't alone. And maybe, just maybe, she could finally be saved. Chapter 61, Propagating the Bloodline is a Family Duty. My Sakurajima hesitated for a moment before looking up at Ru. Despite her fears and anxieties, there was hope in his presence. She took a deep breath, collecting her thoughts, before finally opening up to him. I started my career as a child star. She began, her voice steady but laced with a subtle wariness. I've been in the public eye since I was little. TV shows, movies, commercials. No matter where I went, people always noticed me. Ru listened without interruption. It wasn't surprising. Most celebrities struggled with fame at some point. Constant public scrutiny, paparazzi stalking their every move, and the weight of always being watched. It wasn't easy. At first, I accepted it. But as I got older, I started wishing I could just disappear. Live a normal life, free from all the attention. Her voice softened. One day, I wished for it. And it came true. Her hands clutched the hem of her skirt. I remember it clearly. I stepped outside, expecting the usual stares, the whispers. But no one even looked at me. For the first time in years, I could walk freely without a disguise, without a mask. At first, I was thrilled. Her lips curled into a bitter smile. But then, I realized something was wrong. At first, I could still talk to people. Mai continued, her fingers gripping the fabric of her skirt tighter. But as time passed, no matter how loudly I spoke, no one heard me. No one saw me. I couldn't even buy food or interact with the world. It was as if I had ceased to exist. Ru said nothing, letting her pour out everything she had bottled up. Then, 2 weeks ago, something even worse happened. She took a shaky breath. I started seeing things. Monsters. Ghosts. Curses. At first, they didn't seem to notice me. But while humans ignored me completely, these things were real. Ru remained silent, waiting for her to continue. And then I realized. I wasn't just disappearing from human perception. I was being pulled away from this world entirely. Her arms wrapped around herself, legs drawn up onto the couch. I was afraid that one day, I'd completely vanish, trapped between worlds, becoming just another lost spirit. Her voice trembled as she said it out loud. That's why I searched for you. Mai lifted her gaze, locking eyes with Ru. When I heard about Shinjuku. When I saw what happened. I thought, if anyone could help me, it would be you. She let out a weak chuckle. It's not a confession or anything. But right now, you're my only hope. A brief silence followed. Then clap. 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 Ru slowly applauded, an amused smirk forming on his lips. Nice monologue. Very dramatic. Mai puffed up her cheeks, feeling slightly embarrassed. I'm being serious. I know. That's why it was so entertaining. TCH. She crossed her arms, trying not to seem flustered. So? Can you help me? That depends. Ru leaned back, folding his arms behind his head. What's in it for me? Mai narrowed her eyes. I'll pay you. Name your price. Ru chuckled. Money isn't everything, you know. Your condition isn't just some random phenomenon. Ru explained. You have the potential to become a sorcerer. Mai blinked. A sorcerer? Yes. Your power is already manifesting, but you don't know how to control it. That's why your technique is running wild. Ru tapped a finger against his temple. Your ability likely eliminates people's perception of you. The moment you wished to be invisible, your subconscious activated it. And since you lack control, it's growing stronger. That's why you're slipping further away from the world. Mai's heart pounded as she listened. So, you're saying I can fix this? Not alone. Ru smirked. But with my guidance? Absolutely. A wave of relief washed over her. Finally a real answer. Then. Will you teach me? She was still wary. She didn't know much about Ru, but he was the first person to acknowledge her existence in weeks. Compared to some unknown organization, he felt like the safest option. Sure. Ru said. But there's one condition. Mai tensed. What is it? Ru's smirk deepened. You'll have to join my family. Mai stared. 3 question marks practically floated above her head. Wait, what do you mean join your family? Ru stretched lazily. The world of sorcery is old. Bloodlines are important. Most sorcerers inherit their abilities through lineage. My family. Well, it's practically extinct. Mai listened carefully, but her suspicions grew. So, what does that have to do with me? Simple. You're a rare case, a new sorcerer appearing outside of the main families. I want to adopt you into my bloodline. Mai squinted. That sounds like a fancy way of saying harem recruitment. Ru grinned. Producing future generations of powerful sorcerers is a top priority. Mai's face turned red. Hold on. What kind of logic is that? It's just common sense in the sorcery world. Riz shrugged. I mean, if you go to Jujutsu High, you'll be trained to exorcise curses, fight constantly, and risk your life daily. But if you join me, you can learn at your own pace. No pressure, no mandatory combat. Just training and protection you under the strongest sorcerer alive. Mai froze at his last words. Wait. You're saying you're the strongest? Obviously. Riz smirked. Who do you think wrecked half of Shinjuku? Her eyes widened. That was you? Mai gulped. No wonder he was so confident. So, what's your decision? She bit her lip, deep in thought. Everything he said made sense. Joining a high-risk exorcist school sounded terrifying. But staying by Ryu's side? That was the safer choice. Fine. She exhaled. I'll join. Rig grinned. Welcome to the family. When can I start learning sorcery? Mai asked. We'll begin today. Riz smirked. Also, for convenience, you should move into my place. Mai's eyes shot open. Excuse me? You won't last long on your own. If you keep fading, you'll eventually become untouchable. Living with me is the safest option. Mai hesitated. But he wasn't wrong. Fine. She crossed her arms. But only until I regain control. Riz smirked. Of course. Chapter 62, Yurikawa Hana's confession lunch break. Normally, the girls would head to the Spirit Exorcism Clubroom to relax, but after everything that had happened on Christmas Eve, none of them wanted to go today. Kasumijoka Utaha and Mira Yumiko were deliberately avoiding each other. Both were proud, and after witnessing each other's most embarrassing moments, they'd rather let some time pass before facing one another. Meanwhile, Yotsuya Maiko was still reeling from Yurikawa Hana's unexpected confession, making it difficult for her to explain things to Utaha and Yumiko. Then, a message appeared in the group chat. I'm announcing a new member in the family group. Despite the tension, this message successfully lured everyone back to the clubroom. By the time Yurikawa Hana and Yotsuya Maiko arrived, they had bought a huge pile of snacks, clearly tempted by their usual habit of indulging in sweets. Everyone, I brought lots of snacks to share. Hana announced energetically, placing the bags on the table. However, as soon as she looked around, she sensed something was off. Eh? Why is everyone so quiet? She asked, tilting her head. Maiko, sitting beside her, covered her face and gently pulled Hana down. Hana. Just sit first. She whispered. On the other side of the room, Utaha and Yumiko turned their heads in opposite directions, deliberately avoiding eye contact so they wouldn't be reminded of last night's incident. Of course, they hadn't came because of what Ri had said in the group chat. So, Utaha finally spoke, resting her chin on her palm. Who's the lucky girl that got added this time, Ryukun? Looks like she agreed to your harem application. Maiko, thinking the topic had shifted to what happened last night, hesitated for a moment before raising her hand. Sorry, Utaha-senpai. Hana told me last night that she does like her and doesn't mind. A heavy silence fell over the room. Utaha and Yumiko exchanged glances. Hana, on the other hand, turned completely red. Maiko. Why would you just blurt it out like that? She stammered, flustered. She had planned to find the right moment to confess properly, but now the surprise was completely ruined. Maiko looked at her friend in confusion. Hana hadn't joined the family group yet, so Maiko assumed Riz's announcement referred to her. Combining what she'd learned last night with Riz's message, she had thought Hana had confessed already. But judging from Hana's reaction, had she misunderstood? Riz smirked, deciding to sit back and enjoy the show for now. Yurikawa Hana? Utaha's eyes narrowed slightly. Yumiko folded her arms. Honestly, I saw this coming when she joined the Spirit Exorcism Club. Same here. Utaha did. But I didn't expect you to wait this long, Ryu. More than a month before making a move? Ryu chuckled but didn't reply. Meanwhile, Hana, feeling a surge of emotions, turned toward him. Although she was normally shy and adorable, she spoke up boldly this time. I've never really had feelings for anyone before, so I don't know much about love. But when I'm with you, I feel happy. Eating snacks you give me makes me happy. And I want to keep being with you, Ryu. And with everyone here. Oh. Hana. Maiko, touched by her friend's courage, clapped her hands together. Compared to herself, who had only been able to confess in private, Hana was bold enough to do it in front of everyone. Then, a realization hit her. Wait. Why does this feel like Hana's confessing to Ryu right now? Had she misunderstood everything from the start? Ryu, still amused, hadn't expected Hana to reach this stage so quickly. He had only been teasing her, giving her snacks, and subtly guiding her feelings. But apparently, he had underestimated his own charm. A moment later, he smiled and responded. Of course, I won't turn down a beautiful and talented girl like you, Hannah. Hannah beamed. As a healer with exceptional spiritual energy, she was special in ways even she didn't realize yet. Rue was already looking forward to what the future with her would be like. But anyway, he continued, shifting back to the topic. Since we have a new family member, today's a day worth celebrating. With everyone already accustomed to Rue's ever-growing harem, they accepted Hannah into the group with little resistance. Especially since Hannah was naturally lovable. Utaha smirked. Alright, then. Welcome, Hannah. From now on, I'll call you by your first name. Hannah nodded happily. Of course, Utaha-senpai. There was nothing wrong with those words alone. But the way Utaha said it like she was an elder welcoming a new family member made Yumiko roll her eyes. Ugh. How boring. Oh? Then how would you welcome her, Yumiko? Utaha countered. Would you cry and beg for mercy like last night? Yumiko's face turned bright red. What? Why don't you talk about yourself? You were just as bad, if not worse. The moment those words left her mouth, she realized her mistake. The entire clubroom had gone silent. With everyone staring at her. Yumiko cleared her throat and quickly tried to cover it up. Ahem. I was talking about a game. Yeah, the plot of that game was. Really emotional. Utaha played along. Yes. That game. Very touching story. Ryu chuckled but let them have this small victory. Then, he casually dropped another bombshell. Oh, by the way, Mai's joining the family too. Mai? Utaha and Yumiko said in unison. There's another one? I never said there was only one. Ryu shrugged. I was actually talking about Mai earlier, but I didn't expect Hannah to have such deep feelings for me. Maiko, still recovering from her realization, covered her face. She had misunderstood everything from the start. Yumiko, on the other hand, connected the dots. Wait. You mean Mai Sakurajima? The actress? The missing girl from school? That's right. Utaha squinted at him. Ryukun, that's not what you said when you were, receiving my reward last night. Then as an apology. Ryu replied smoothly, I'll make it up to you tenfold in the future. Utaha's face darkened. What kind of nonsense was this? Ignoring her frustration, returned his attention to Mai Sakurajima, who had been present in the clubroom the entire time. Of course, no one could see her but him. As the girls listened to her story, sympathy filled the room. Hannah even teared up. That's so sad. Being forgotten by the whole world? If that happened to me, I wouldn't know what to do. Maiko remained silent. She had thought she was the unluckiest girl in the club. But compared to Mai, her own experiences seemed trivial. After the girls officially welcomed Mai, Ryu made an announcement. She'll be staying at my house for now. The girls didn't object. And so, after school, Ryu helped Mai pack her things. It took less than 10 minutes. This is all? He asked. I don't really have anything else to bring. She admitted. In that case. A vortex appeared beneath his right eye, swallowing her luggage into Camu's pocket dimension. Mai's eyes widened. Before she could react further, Ryu warped them both directly to his house. Standing at the doorstep, Mai looked dazed. I can't process this. You'll get used to it. Ryu smirked. Just then, his eyes caught something in a mailbox. A golden invitation. Scanning it quickly, he grinned. An invitation from the Shinomiya family? He chuckled to himself. Oh? They actually made the first move. This might be interesting. Chapter 63, Mai Sakurajima moves in. Arriving at her new living environment, Mai Sakurajima couldn't help but glance around curiously as she stepped inside. This is a little different from what I imagined a sorcerer's home would be like. What exactly were you expecting? Some kind of ancient temple with talismans hanging everywhere? Hearing this, Ryu turned around and smirked. Even a sorcerer is still a person. Mai crossed her arms and huffed. I wasn't thinking that much. Then, shifting the topic, she asked, so, where's the guest room? Upstairs. Pick whichever one you like. For a single-person residence, Ryu's house was fairly spacious. But with new additions to the household, he was already considering a larger place for the future. After all, they were all going to live together from now on. Mai set her luggage down, briefly checking the distance between her chosen room and Ryu's bedroom, before making her way back downstairs. She looked at him seriously. Can we start the training now? Then sit here first. Seeing Ryu pat the spot next to him on the couch, Mai hesitated before sitting down. You look a little tense. I've never been in close contact with a guy like this before. She murmured, clearly a bit flustered. But I'll try to get used to it. Ryu raised an eyebrow. Give me your hand. Though Mai was confused, she obediently extended her hand. Without hesitation, Ri took her hand in his, grasping it firmly. Mai's eyes widened in shock. I'm helping you get over your nerves. How is this supposed to help? Ri smirked. Isn't there a saying? If you're nervous, face it head on. Seems like it's working, don't you think? Mai sighed. That's only because I was so startled I forgot to be nervous. She tried to pull her hand away, but when she realized she couldn't, she simply gave up with a resigned sigh. You must be really good at handling women, huh? Don't twist my good intentions. Ri replied smoothly. You don't need a reason to be close to family. Then, tilting his head, he gave her a pointed look. You were bold enough to show off your stockings earlier, but now you're getting shy? That was. I wasn't showing them off to you. Mai retorted, her face turning red. And now that I'm officially part of this, the situation is totally different. What do you mean by different? Ri asked, amused. Nothing. Mai quickly turned her head away, still flustered. She raised their intertwined hands. I'm not nervous anymore. Can you let go now? Of course. Ri let go without protest. Then, can you open your palm for a moment? Mai shot him a wary glance before following his instruction. The moment she did, Ri clasped their hands again, fingers locking together even more tightly than before. Hey, what is this? If you're no longer nervous, we can get closer as a family, right? That's what you were saying. Ri smirked. Or do you have some deeper thoughts on the matter? Mai pursed her lips, her face heating up. No. Then let's get started. Of course. With his objective achieved, Ri shifted to the main topic. As I've mentioned, cursed energy is born from negative emotions. To put it simply, sorcery is a byproduct of human emotions. He leaned back slightly. The rise and fall of your emotions directly affect your control over cursed energy. To manipulate it, you first need to feel it inside yourself. Mai thought for a moment. So, you want me to stir up my emotions? Give it a try. Following his suggestion, Mai attempted to evoke different emotions: anger, sadness, frustration, but no matter what she tried, she couldn't sense anything unusual. Is cursed energy really that abstract? She asked, frowning. It's more like a dormant force. Right now, your body is already fused with it, but since you've never consciously felt it before, you've trained yourself to ignore it. Ri explained this calmly before suddenly lifting her hand again. This wasn't just to mess with her. With a swift motion, he gathered a sphere of cursed energy in his palm. Can you see it? Mai nodded, staring at the swirling mass of dark energy. Yeah. I can see it. Her eyes sharpened with intrigue. It was as if an entirely new world had opened before her. So this is cursed energy. Ri guided her hand closer to the energy. Now, try to focus on this feeling. Mai took a deep breath, closing her eyes to concentrate. A strange sensation washed over her. The warmth of Ri's palm was unmistakable, but beneath it, there was something else. Something cold. A foreign, unfamiliar chill spread through her fingertips, contrasting against the warmth of his skin. I feel something. Opening her eyes, she met his expectant gaze. Good. Now, remember this feeling. He instructed. Use it to locate the cursed energy inside your own body. Mai nodded, shutting her eyes again. She focused inward, trying to recall that eerie, cold sensation. But not everyone was a natural prodigy. Even after multiple attempts, she still couldn't grasp it. Frustration began to bubble inside her. The more anxious she became, the harder it was to concentrate until suddenly, something clicked. Like a flickering spark, a surge of energy pulsed through her body. Mai's breath hitched as she finally sensed it, a distinct, chilling presence flowing through her veins. She latched onto the feeling, chasing after it. And then, her awareness expanded. For the first time, she could see it: cursed energy, circulating within her, an invisible current she had never noticed before. She disconnected her emotions momentarily. Then, she tried searching for the energy again. And this time, it came to her much more easily. After repeating the process successfully several times, Mai turned to Ri with bright eyes. I did it. I can feel the cursed energy now. Ri smirked. Not bad. That's the first step. Mai puffed up her chest, feeling proud until she processed his words. Wait. This is just the basics. Ri chuckled. Of course. The foundation of everything is sensing cursed energy. Only once you've mastered that can you begin to control it. He stood up, gazing down at her with an amused expression. And only after mastering control can you start learning actual sorcery. With a casual shrug, he added, you've still got a long way to go if you want to fix your problem, Mai. Mai pouted. Ugh. This is going to be tough, isn't it? Ri's smirk widened. Welcome to the world of Jujutsu.